Hi, this is Roger Moore, and you're listening to James Bond Radio.
Hello, and welcome to episode 208 of James Bond Radio. You were expecting the music of Bond, the Living Daylights edition this week, but I'm afraid we've had to do a little last-minute jiggery-pokery. My name's Tom Sears, and I'm joined by, not JW, I'm joined by Chris Wright. How you doing, Chris?
I thought you were going to say CW.
I should have done that, shouldn't I? I didn't think of that. I was too slow on the uptake. But JW, unfortunately, has been waylaid with lots of work-based things, and he has not been able to carve out the time to do the Daylights episode. And he did say in his message to me that it's okay if we want to publicly shame him, which means
that makes me do that.
Well, you say that. I that makes me think of the Game of Thrones episodes where they're made to march through the streets in the nude, and I thought, maybe we can do that. Exactly. You've seen it. Maybe we can do that. Or is that too much? What do you think?
It depends what streets you're talking about. Are we going like full on middle of the day, sort of California, Hollywood style? I guess down Sunset Boulevard in the nude. Or maybe the Walk of Fame, where all the Hollywood stars are.
I like that.
JW walking down that. Yeah, get his own little star out.
All right, cool. We'll make sure he does that before he returns to JBR in the future. All right, everybody. So what we're going to do, we thought, let's just jump on and have a little chinwag, have a little jam session. Because we've not done one of those episodes in a while where we just chat about something. It's usually been an interview or a planned thing, but we thought let's just get on and chat about some Bond villainy and how they die, which is a nice thing to chat about, isn't it? Because it's quite a varied topic, isn't it? And there are some patterns as well. So talk to me. How are you feeling about that, Chris?
Yeah, no, this is a good one. I think it's one I'd been thinking about for quite a while that I thought would make for a good episode. Yeah. And I think it's a hugely important thing when it comes to a Bond film is the villain's death. Obviously, the villain itself is huge in terms of how important they are to make a good Bond film, and the death is a big part of that. I think if you're thinking of your favourite villain's death, it's what are the most memorable ones, what are the most iconic ones, what we often use the phrase hoisted by their own petard, and that's and the ones that have meaning to them, there are some also that Bond didn't kill. There were some that were killed by other characters. That's sort of another interesting strand.
What? That happens more often than one might think as well, doesn't it? When you really think about it,
yeah. And there are a few little twists along the way, but I think it's an area which is pretty interesting, and I don't think you can have a bad villain's death and come out of the film feeling like it's job done. I think you need a really good one to make when you come out and be like, oh yeah, that was amazing. And I think a solid villain's death is what you need. So what do you? If I said to you then, Tom, what do you think makes a good Bond villain death? How would you answer that? What would you say?
I would say, first of all, I like them to inflate. That's how I like them to be dispatched, primarily. They're just hanging out, and then they inflate, and then preferably rise to the ceiling and then explode. Like, I like the realistic ones, basically, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Now, do you know what? As I'm sort of scanning through in my mind as I'm sitting here, there are some that leap to mind as like a bit, is that all? Which is disappointing, obviously. And then there are some that are crazy, like Kananga's offing there. But that is memorable at the same time. You can't knock it. It is memorable despite how crazy it is. And then there are some that are just right. And there are some that I also think are missed opportunities as well, that I'm just like, I don't think that was the right way for them to go in the grand scheme of things. But we're gonna see if we can come up with something better. Woe be it on us to have any skills in that department. But we're going to see what we can muster up, see if we can be like, you know what, that's how I'd have dispatched that person rather than how they did go.
Sounds good to me.
Mate. Well, listen, I want to make a quick recommendation to everybody at home before we get cracking. I don't think I've mentioned this before, but it's a podcast that I think I might have posted it on the socials because I have a vague memory of telling somebody about this. Anyway, podcast that is quite honestly the dog's bollocks for anybody who has even the vaguest interest in World War II. It's called Amazing War Stories. I'm going to flash that up on camera there. Look, boom.
That's a nice little image.
I think you can see it. And dude, it's not like a sort of tin pot, two dudes sitting there chatting away like you and I do and the rest of the team JBR. It's like an audio experience for want of a better term, right? Where you've got this dude that's narrating and telling the story, and then in the background you've got some exciting. It's like listening to a movie. It's really immersive. You've got the dude telling the story, narrating it. You've got some sort of like little snippets of voice acting going on, loads of sound effects and music, and it talks about loads of missions from World War II. So it's all kind of true story based of like missions. And, you know, little crack squads of commandos going in to take out some Nazis and all the rest of it. And, dude, I have, so they've done one season of it so far from the end of last year. So how many episodes is that? That's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7 episodes, I believe, so far. And they're all about half an hour. Oh. And, dude, they're amazing. I've listened. Not only have I listened through once, I've gone back and to the start and listened through to them again. So there's amazing war stories. Check it out. It's the business. It really is.
Are they based on actual missions, actual events, or are they dramatized?
So it's all real World War II stories basically, and it's kind of like dramatized is the wrong word because he's describing it in a sort of like almost like a textbook way of here's what happened and then here's what their goal was and blah blah blah. But then it's sort of like as he's describing the events of what happened, there's like voice actors
kind of guns going off and
all
stuff.
that is the business, and there is nothing like a good old-fashioned World War II story to get me fired up, man. Because like I often say, you know, wars these days is usually about the moolah, isn't it? It's like, oh, we fancy a bit more oil, let's go and do that. Whereas in those days, you had a proper nut job villain that needed a good spanking. And that was like the last war I think we had that was like actually a noble war where we all had to band together and go and give them a good hiding. And I get super excited about that, man. I really do. It's a very good listen.
Was there a bit of sneaky Bond action going on in the stories?
Loads of it. That's primarily it. It's basically without Bond being in it. It's an entire podcast of just sneaky Bond actions of people sneaking around little battlements and, you know, setting time bombs and running away.
This sounds
it's like my ultimate dream, dude, in a podcast. I love it. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, thoroughly enjoy it, dude. And you know, there's some like for me, I suppose my sort of listen to how up my street does this episode sound? Episode 2, The Night Raiders of Normandy. Like I'm sold on that immediately. I don't even need to listen to it. I'm already spent. But I do, dude, man, I get especially excited about like D-Day related things. I would say. So I know this is a little bit off topic to everybody at home, but I think the genes, the DNA of Bond is rooted in World War II. And what I find especially exciting is when you see those little nuggets of like things that would become Bondian later on in the day, like little gadgets that the special operations executive used to use when they'd sabotage the place. And even that word, the special operations executive, sounds Bondy, doesn't it? You know, hiding a dagger in the shoe and all that kind of stuff. It's like real life Bondy before it was like made into Bond, and I get very excited, man. Yeah, man, anything D-Day, Normandy related, I get especially excited about. You know, I often think there's another book I'm going to recommend quickly before we get talking about Bond called D-Day Through German Eyes, which is brilliant because I also think it's funny how whenever you read about World War II or anything like that, it's always from the perspective of the Allies. You never hear it from the other way around. And D-Day Through German Eyes is literally that. It's all the dudes that were sitting there on the beach, not sitting there on the beach, but you know, they were waiting there at Normandy when it all kicked off. And it's their stories of what it was like for them being in the battlements on the beach as they're being invaded. And dude, that is amazing as well. Really, really good. Because I often thought to myself, what would that have been like, man, to wake up that morning as a German soldier on the beach, looking out at that massive armada coming for you? Like, can you imagine that, dude? And be like, holy fuck, you know? And especially because, like I said before, man, Adolf needed such a spanking. He really did. And it's like, when you think of that, the biggest armada ever assembled, coming across the water like that to come and deliver some motherfucking justice, it's like, I get all like fired up about it, and it's very exciting. And to read that book is amazing. So get that on Amazon as well. And I tell you what, ask me who was on one of those boats, Chris.
All right. Who was on one of those boats, Tom?
My granddad, Bill, mate. There he was, jumped off the little Saving Private Ryan boat thing, ran up the beach like the rest of him, and he lived to tell the tale as well. Amazing.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. You've been there as well, haven't you?
I have, very much so. You can tell I get, do you know what? I do think I actually get almost as passionate about D-Day as I do about Bond. I get very excited about it when when I get cooking. Yeah, absolutely. Nice, anyway, before I go off on another tangent, should we start talking about Bond villains?
Yeah, let's do it. Bond villains.
All right, let's have some theme tune then.
My name's Bond. James Bond.
Bond.
James.
Bond, what do you think you're doing?
Keeping the British end up, sir.
Welcome to James Bond Radio. News, reviews, and discussion of all things 007.
Lucy. As you can see, I have no problem with female authority.
Oh, pipe down, 007.
Do you expect me to talk?
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to lie.
Okay, so here we are talking about James Bond villain deaths. Now, there's only one place to start. It is, of course, 54 Casino Royale. I'm only joking. No, we're going to start with Dr. No. Okay, so Dr. Julius No. Tommy, what do you think of Dr. No's death? I'm a fan of this one.
Yeah, it's good. See, let's discuss the petard bit, right? What's he doing? He's toppling the rockets, setting two countries against each other. The old classic, right? So if you were to hoist him by his own petard, maybe you'd make a rocket fly into him that way. It's a bit much, though, isn't it?
That's one way of doing it, yeah.
It's a bit much, that. So, I feel like being consumed by the reactor water, or whatever that is, I guess that's what it is.
Yeah.
And drowning in there is a nice petard thing without literally shoving a rocket up there. What do you think? You like it?
Well, there's obviously the other petard, which is the fact he's got metal hands. So obviously when we first see them, they crush that sort of statue thing. Bond knows if Dr. No gets his hand on him, he's going to cause him serious damage. This is something to be fearful of. But yet, it's also the thing that ultimately ends up stopping Dr. No from being able to climb back out. So you sort of see the metal hands sort of sliding on the sort of rig thing, on the lift thing, and just sliding back in. So yeah, I think that bit's great. Obviously, the fight beforehand is a little low key. First film in the series, so you're not getting your, obviously from Russia with Love, and the very next film they do an absolute amazing fight in that, but you're not getting that full on intense fight initially, but it's still a nice little battle. And I think, apart from the fact that Dr. No sort of slid into the sort of boiling radioactive water, it was a pretty even match, I think, up until then. So I think it's a good way to go. The only other way, toppling, what could he do? Maybe if he tell Dr. No to close his eyes, and that sort of game when you drink and then people turn you around and around and around and say, right, walk in a straight line, and you kind of topple over. That could be his version of toppling Dr. No.
I like that. Yeah, that's a good one. I like that. Yeah. That's how we improve on that. 100%. That's nice. Yeah, good. I like the nice thing for me. It's going to sound a little bit perverse, what's about to come out of my mouth, but the nice thing about it is when you have like a super control freak Bond villain, who's super manipulator behind the scenes, that whole thing, and putting our heroes in jeopardy and all the rest of it. It's nice to see them struggle a bit when they go, isn't it? It's nice. What I don't like is when it's like it's too quick. No, that was too. He needed to suffer a little bit to be like, you know what, you deserved a bit of pain and struggle there, and you do that. You do get that. You see a nice bit of struggle on him, and he's a little bit of panic as he goes in, and I like that.
And you can imagine, obviously, this is scalding hot water. Yeah. It's going to be burning him from the toes up as he sinks into it. That's not a nice way to go at all. And the fact, so I was just going to go, the other good thing is that he gets involved, because not every villain is a physical match for Bond or physically goes up against him. So it is nice when you get the villains that do. Obviously, Blofeld from Majesties, he's one that does it. Largo, he's one that does it. Yeah. And Dr. No is as well. He sees Bond causing havoc, and he doesn't send one of his minions. It's like, right, he's going to try and finish him. So I like that.
Yeah, as do I, man. I think it's. I always equate it a little bit to old 60s Batman. Do you remember when the main villains in 60s Batman very rarely got stuck in, did they? They'd stand at the back, and then all their mindless minions would come steaming in, and they'd do the wham bam and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, he doesn't mess around, does he? He as soon as he realizes something up, he's up and he's doing that funny run to go and get Bond. And
yeah, he has got a funny run, doesn't he?
He does.
I don't know if it's the hands. I don't know if they're heavy, but he kind of runs.
I'm guessing that's what it is. But that, getting twatted in the face by those metal hands is not going to be a good time, is it? So, yeah, he's definitely a threat there. You know what, man? The older I get, the more appreciation I have for Dr. No as the film. That is not just the character. The more I love it, even though obviously it's not a fully formed beast yet. The soundtrack isn't what it became, and the whole formula isn't quite there yet. But dude, I love that film. I think it's brilliant. Like raw, sort of basic Bond. I don't know if it's the right way to say it, but Bond at his core, at his roots. The detective work. I always like the little hair thing across the wardrobe and all those little things. Man, I have a lot of time for Dr. No these days.
Yeah, same here. It's grown. It's like definitely gone way up the list compared to when I was really young. But even in the last sort of 10 years, I think it's improved in terms of it's just so well done, and Connery is so on point throughout the whole film. It's got a good villain, it's got a good story. The locations are lovely. And yeah, I agree. I think obviously it's a bit rough around the edges, but it's a great film with a cracking villain as well.
Absolutely.
So do you think we should kind of rate these villain deaths, or should we just say, okay, this is top tier, middle tier, lower tier, or
I would I don't know whether we could give it an out of 10, but no. I think maybe like great, good, all right, shit.
Okay, and where are we putting this one?
I would say I wouldn't rank it as a great classic death. I'd say it's a good one.
Yeah, I'm down with that. Yeah, down with that. That sounds good. All right, cool.
So moving on to From Russia with Love then, and I've got a question for you before we start this one.
Ooh.
Who is the main villain? Because I know we're going to think, okay, well, Red Grant, blah, 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 but is he a henchman? You know what I mean? How do we classify this one?
I wouldn't choose Grant for this. So for me, obviously, Blofeld is behind the scenes, so he's not really even though he's behind it all, he's not quite the main villain because he's just a bit in the background in this particular film. I would say Rosa Klebb is the main villain in this one. I think if you did a similar idea along the lines of the henchman, which maybe we'll do one day as well, obviously Red Grant would be the pick for that. So I think we should go with Rosa Klebb. Now, I think her death is very memorable. I remember when I was young watching it and seeing that her wild kicks with the poison blade shoe, and that's something that that stays imprinted on your mind. It certainly did with me anyway. Yeah. And she looks, she's sort of screaming strangely and all this, and also. This is the point where the first, obviously, main villain, where it's not Bond that kills him, but Tanya sort of saves him, doesn't she? And you see that bit where she's waving the gun between the two, and it's like, who's she going to kill? A short series if she'd gone for Bond, but there we go.
Yeah. I think Klebb, man, there's like that bit where she gets a bit hitty, doesn't she? She gets a bit like too rabid, doesn't she? And
rabid is a good
scary
word for her. Yes.
Yeah, because I think there's something like there's a physical foe like Red Grant. He's a burly dude, right? And you're going to be like, I don't want to mess with him because he could probably kick my ass, right? There's that level of fear and caution involved with a character like that. But I think almost women who are proper mental are more terrifying than that. Because I can sort of deal with Red Grant. Not that I'm hard enough to take Red Grant on, of course, but like in the sense that I know what to expect, right? I'm going to get punched in the face and, probably garroted, which is not a good way to go, let's be honest. But with somebody like Klebb, there's that thing in you as a man where I'm like, I can't punch her. She's a woman. She's little. I can't. But then of course she's coming at you with a dagger shoe, hissing and spitting like a feral something. And I don't quite know how to deal with that. Do you know what I mean? It's a very difficult thing. And I feel like Connery has a bit of that in the scene as well, because he's got a chair, and he's trying to do that whole thing. And I feel like he's a bit powerless with that. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because she is diminutive, but she's wild and like deranged. I think the closest other character I'd say that comes a bit to that is maybe Dominic Green at the end of Quantum. He goes a bit mad.
He does. Yeah.
but I think, because he's got the chair. Obviously, he's trying, and he is panicked. Like he knows that she couldn't, out duel him. But yet, if she kicks him, gets him in the shin, that's it. He's a goner. So the fact that he's panicking, and okay. So say Tanya wasn't there, how long do you think they would have gone on with him holding her against the wall with the chair and her swinging her feet? Like half hour?
He could have gone on all day. But let's not forget, in the book, she gets him. Do you know what I mean?
Indeed.
So there is that to consider as well.
Yeah.
It is a tricky one, that. Now, in terms of how she goes down.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's one thing you wouldn't want.
No, absolutely not. Sorry, everybody at home. Disgraceful. There's the option of, okay, she's got the pointy shoe. Maybe that's how she gets done. But how do you practically do that? It's not like he can delace it and turn the tables. There's not a lot that can be done. You can't get her with the shoe,
and she can accidentally kick herself, because that'd be
that would be a bit lame. But I think the power of it does come from the fact that Romanova is the one that pulls the trigger, because she's been the one that's manipulated through the whole thing. She's the victim in all this, and the fact that it's her that pulls the trigger is a nice little send off of like, add that. That's a nice way to go. Now, answer me this: what's your take on when she's going backwards and forwards between Bond and Klebb with the gun? Some people say she's deciding who to shoot. Is it Mother Russia she's going to live for? Or is it Bond she's going to live for?
Yeah. And
she's in that moment deciding. Or is it, oh my God, because this tussle is going backwards and forwards, she's trying to get it on, she's trying to aim at Klebb, but, Bond is moving into the way and she's, trying to avoid shooting Bond. What's your take on that?
Mine has always been the former. And just thinking about the latter now, she's pretty much pinned against that wall, so she's not moving. Connery might be moving a bit, Bond might be moving a bit, but she's pretty much pinned up behind that chair. So if Tanya was moving it around to aim, it'd be solely at Bond, because Klebb's just staying in the one position. So I definitely think it's her thinking, Mother Russia and everything like that, or this fine looking gent. And I'd definitely go with the former. But I agree with you. I think it's a good way for Klebb to go, because if Connery had somehow, like, say he'd gotten a gun and just shot her, that doesn't feel as rewarding as Tanya realizing this woman's, like you said, manipulated her. And everything like that. So I think it was definitely the right way to go. And in terms of the actual attack on Bond, I would class that as definitely memorable. Would you class it as iconic or not?
Do you know what? I would, man, because
I think so.
That dagger shoe is one of those things that, that's if you were to do it, like we often say, the poster of moments or whatever, or the poster of villains, Klebb would definitely be on there. She might not be the biggest one on there for sure, but she'd definitely be on that poster, and that shoe would be part of the look. You know what I mean? She'd have the dagger out,
Yeah.
And that was obviously parodied in Austin Powers as well, wasn't it? Somebody had a dagger shoe. I can't remember who it was now, but somebody did.
Yeah.
And all that. So 100%. Yeah, she's the business, Klebb. I'm terrified of her. I don't know. It's like when you watch, horror movies,
especially
or whatever.
When she goes down on you.
Especially, yeah, you don't know whether that shoe's going. When you watch like horror movies or things with ghosts, I've always thought ghosts of dudes aren't that scary. Ghosts of ladies in flowing robes, terrifying.
That's a really good point.
One step further, ghosts of girl children in flowing robes, the worst. I can't handle that at all. I have to look through my fingers. That terrifies me. I don't know what it is about the females being terrifying, but I think they are. I don't know. What's your take on that?
It's similar. I think, although when it comes to kids, I think if you have evil kids, whether they're boys or girls, that's pretty freaky. Like, if you've got a load of little kids with knives or whatever, that's gonna like shit you up a bit.
Yeah.
But in terms of like thinking of Ghostbusters, the start of that with the librarian, and it turns into
dude,
that freaked the hell out of me, man.
Me up when I was a kid. I remember going to my friend Philip Parsons' house, and we were both big into Ghostbusters, man. He had like the proper proton pack that you would wear, amazing. And I was jealous for ages because I got one eventually, but I didn't have one for ages, and he got one way early. and you had like a little foam stick that you'd put in the end of it to pretend it was the laser.
Did it make that noise when it starts up?
It didn't, but it looked the business anyway. You just make it with your your mouth like you do with the lightsaber, you know. And I remember being in his living room and us watching Ghostbusters, and I'm sitting on the floor playing with his Ecto-1. He's got his proton pack on. We're going deep into Ghostbusters, and watching that scene and just not being able to do it, I just had to close my eyes to that bit. And you know, Philip's mum saying, "Don't take the Mickey out of Tommy now because he doesn't like this bit." Right, Philip? And he's like, "Okay, yeah, it's fine." And then it was all right. I was all right for the rest of it. It was just that bit. But yeah, that scene in particular was terrifying. Yeah.
Did your mate, had he seen it before or not?
Oh yeah, I'd seen it before, but I'd always closed my eyes during that bit. Yeah, yeah.
But if that had been a male librarian, that wouldn't have been half as scary. No. And you're right, there's something about that. Whether like, because you mentioned the young, but I think the really old sort of female ghosts are equally as frightening.
Yeah, I don't like it at all. I find it very unsettling. No. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you saw Klebb in ghost form, you'd run a mile. That's for certain.
I certainly would.
So
it's not what you want.
I think we're quite good though. So two deaths in, both good. I say the first one memorable, possibly not iconic, but memorable. Second one memorable and iconic. I'd say.
Right, good stuff. I'm happy with that. Now moving on, film number 3, which is Goldfinger, I believe. I'm just going to have to check my notes to see if that was the third Goldfinger.
It should be on IMDb.
It was, absolutely.
Cool.
Okay, nice. Goldfinger, third Bond film, great. Now, this one, I would say, is a little bit on the disappointing side, right? Now, I've got my theory as to why, and I'm going to tell you about it. So, he loves gold, right? He goes around painting ladies gold that he doesn't agree with or betrays him or whatever. And he likes to either steal gold, smuggle it, or irradiate it to make his own gold more valuable, right? So, great. Good plan. Like it, Goldfinger. That's good. Now, where I think it's like, that's a bit of a sort of a normal death is there he is on the plane at the end, and then boom, out he comes in his uniform. He's got his golden revolver, and he ends up getting sucked out the window, which there's no petard there at all. And I like a petard, and I like it in particular when they're hoist upon it. And it's kind of like, that wasn't a poetic enough death for me with Goldfinger. Now, here's another thing where typically what might happen is the villain's already dead, but then the henchman comes back at the end. And we had it the other way around here, didn't we? Where obviously you have the iconic fight with Oddjob. You don't want to lose that because that's a cracking fight, and it's visually it's amazing as well. So you can't have Oddjob come back on the plane. You need Goldfinger to do it. But I feel like what would be the poetic way to kill Goldfinger, man? It's got to be gold related. Yeah. Does he fall into a big vat of gold paint?
Gold smelting vat. That's what I initially thought. But then obviously in terms of location, you need to be something completely different. So maybe he gets away and Bond tracks him down to his smelting factory, and then they have a fight and he ends up falling into it. But that would add on another 20 minutes to the film, wouldn't it? So but I agree with you. This is for such an iconic villain, probably the best. A lot of people would say in the series. Certainly, he's right up there.
I've seen him win many polls.
Exactly, unforgettable villain, brilliant. It's just a fact of how obsessed he is with gold. It is a little bit of an underwhelming thing. Obviously, it's not like a boring death because he's getting sucked out of a plane, which is pretty crazy. But it doesn't feel unique enough. I think you could see that death in other films, you know, and with Bond, it needs to be unique because it needs to relate to the particular character that it's about whether the petard or the obsession. And obviously, in this case with gold, it should have been something gold related. I know he had his gold revolver and that's what he used to fire out the window, but I definitely agree with you that this is a little bit disappointing when we've seen such an incredible villain up until this point. I know they have their sort of tussle on the plane and, you know, have a bit of a fight going on, which doesn't last long, but it's not too bad. But I think there just needed to be a stronger way for Goldfinger to go.
So let me ask this, right? So there is, like you say, there is that element to it where he's got his golden gun, right? Which is Scaramanga in the books. He's got a golden revolver, hasn't he? If I remember correctly. It's been many years since I've read Man with the Golden Gun. But so he's got Scaramanga's Fleming gun there. Let me ask you this. What if we went back and reversed or jiggery pokered some things round? So instead of Bond versus Oddjob at Fort Knox, it's Bond versus Goldfinger, right? And maybe, let's say, maybe he electrocutes him or however he dispatches him, but he ends up falling over and a big pile of gold bricks falls on his head.
Well, this is exactly
he
it.
ends up piled in gold, you know?
Yeah, because he mentions before, doesn't he, the divine heaviness of gold.
Yeah.
So it's the weight. That's another thing that he's absolutely loves about it. And that would be a great way. That would be great. Now,
so there's that. But having said that, right, Oddjob, obviously not main villain, but he gets a bit petarded, doesn't he? Because hat caught in the bars, then he's electrocuted, and the steel rim of his hat is what flows the electricity flows through, and that's what gets him. So that's a nice poetic death for Oddjob.
Yeah,
has to be
fantastic.
said. Brilliant. But he's not the main villain. So it's like, is there value in that? That's the debate I would like to extend to the JBR family, because at the end of the day, who are we, man? Goldfinger, absolute earth-shattering classic Bond film. We're not qualified to comment, really. And, certainly not skilled enough to write a movie like that. But if you were to change that around, what do you think? Do you think it would have been better to have Goldfinger killed within Fort Knox, and then maybe Oddjob is the one who shows up on the plane at the end? But then you're a bit restricted with the hat stuff, aren't you, on a plane? Yeah. So it's a bit tricky.
It's a really interesting point, that, because you can imagine the fight with Goldfinger and Bond in Fort Knox visually would be as stunning as the one with Oddjob. But there wouldn't be that whole, like, Goldfinger's got a bit of size to him, but he's not Oddjob in terms of you cannot lose the Oddjob fight. It's too brilliant. Like, Bond just looks, he's completely out of his depth with Oddjob, and the way that Oddjob gets electrocuted that's too good. That can't be touched. But maybe there could have been another way. I think having Goldfinger and Oddjob both die in Fort Knox probably wouldn't have worked either.
No.
So there needed to be another way. Maybe Bond tracked Goldfinger down to it. He says that he's got a gold supply. So maybe wherever he goes next could have been there, and then they had a battle, and then the gold fell on him, or the smelting, like we said, or something. So
with that said, like you said, it would take another 20 minutes on the end. I'd take another 20 minutes on the end of Goldfinger.
It's very short. Very short Bond film, so I would as well.
All right, so take to the social medias, the JBR social medias, everybody listening at home. I want to hear your thoughts on that, whether you think it's perfect as it is, doesn't matter that he's not hoisted by his petard at the end, or whether you think you can think of a more golden death for Mr. Goldfinger. So go on then, how did you rate Goldfinger's death?
It's a shame, because a character, without a doubt, iconic. I would put it as... What are the tiers? Not great, not good, but all right. I think I'd go all right.
Yeah, it was great, good, all right,
or shit. Right.
It's all right, isn't it?
Yeah, I think all right, because, it's still something happening, so I wouldn't say it's shit. And they have the little tussle, and he's got the golden gun, but I wouldn't class it as good, just because there is more scope for something better to have happened. But
nicely done. Cool. All right.
Next up,
Thunderball, man. What are you thinking about Largo?
Emilio Largo. Now, of course, here again, we've got another villain that's killed by someone else other than Bond, in this case Domino, who comes to Bond's rescue, which is good because, again, a bit like Tanya, Domino's been not so much manipulated, but, a kept mistress, and Largo was going to torture her, and obviously he killed her brother and all of this sort of stuff going on. So I think the revenge aspect for Domino is stronger than Bond killing the villain. It would have been like if Bond had killed and then Domino just appeared up and said, "Oh, thank you." That wouldn't have worked for me. It's like, "Oh, thanks, James." That just wouldn't have been strong enough. So they definitely made the right move. And if we're looking at petards, it's sort of a harpoon gun which is underwater, and that's what Largo's all about. So I think in a way it's not directly related to him, but there is that indirect link through the underwaterness, and I think a harpoon gun is a good way to go.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Largo?
Yeah, I like that. It's so let's think about how he kills her brother. He's underwater, isn't he? And he cuts the airline.
Yeah.
Horrible way to go, I would imagine. So using an underwater implement is nice. It's poetic that it's her that gets to do it. I think again. I don't class this one as iconic. Is it all right or is it good? I'm a bit undecided on this one because it's not one of those classic death moments. It's a bit of a sort of normal death.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
wouldn't even call it memorable. It's definitely not iconic, and I don't think it's memorable just because you ask the general person in the street at Bond Largo, oh yeah, Thunderball, no idea how he died, couldn't remember. But if you said, Goldfinger or sucked out the plane or whatever. Yeah. So I wouldn't class it as memorable. I think it's got to be.
For me, somewhere I think it's all right.
Yeah, I think it's all right as well. Yeah. Because it's not got enough pizzazz around it to be anything better. The fight before I think is brilliant. Yeah. I think that fight between Bond and Largo and Bond and the Disco Volante crew is incredible. Really, really good. Yeah. Obviously the whole back projection with the sped up thing is a bit lame, but it's pretty hard hitting, the Largo Bond, and the fact that, hang on a minute, here's someone that's gotten the better of Bond. If it wasn't for Domino, Largo was about to kill Bond. So Largo out sort of fought Bond. He was stronger, he was better than Big Bond. Time. So that I think is quite cool, because to get a villain who we think sometimes everyone says, oh, Bond's a Superman. Well, here he's not. He's clearly not, because he's been out muscled by Largo. And so I think the poetic justice of Domino killing him works really well, but it's definitely not iconic. So I think I would go with you. I'd say it's on the upper level of all right, but still all right.
Yeah, it's still all right. Do you know what? I think I've decided what my best villain death is.
Ooh, hang on a minute.
I'm not going to tell you what it is until we get there. Right. But in terms of poetic,
do you know what? I've got an idea of what I think it might be. But anyway, we'll see.
Okay, all right, good. We'll see if
I have now. It was something else, but I definitely know what it is now.
Okay.
I think so.
We will see. We will see if you're right. Nicely done. Yes. All right, so we've got 2 all rights in a row. Let's see if we can do better next time. You only live twice, man. What's going on with this one? Okay,
so now we're getting into a little tricky area here, because obviously we're getting into Blofeld territory, and obviously within You Only Live Twice and Majesties, Blofeld doesn't die, and also Diamonds, he doesn't die. So I think with these ones, I don't know if there are any strong enough alternatives, because some of the Bond films have almost like 2 main villains. But I think with You Only Live Twice, you've got your Blofeld. You don't see him for ages. You've got Osato, but he's not really high enough, I don't think. And then, so I don't know. I think maybe it's best we just put this one to one side for now.
It is a tricky one, because obviously we didn't class Red Grant within the boundaries of what we're talking about today.
No,
but he's got a good petard to be hoisted by, isn't he? That one, that's a good one. The one that sticks out for me in You Only Live Twice is the old fishes, the old piranha fishes,
that's Hans and Helga Brandt.
When she goes in there, and she's writhing around and screaming and stuff like that. That to me is quite a hard-hitting death, isn't it?
That's memorable, and I'd say iconic. Perhaps not for the character, but certainly the idea around it. The fact that there's this, drawbridge with a not trapdoor, but it drops down to the piranha fish. Everyone will remember that piranha pond. Obviously, it's been parodied as well, but that is like super, super iconic, I think. Yeah. So obviously, she like her and Hans are not main villains by any stretch of the imagination, but their death is at the cause of a main villain. So it's kind of, obviously there's a link there. So we can't kind of say,
honourable mention, I guess. We can do an honourable mention for things like that, I guess, as we progress.
That sounds good.
But we don't have a villain death for three films, do we? Yeah. That's quite shocking, isn't it?
And also, if we're going on to Majesties, you'd kind of say Irma Bunt would be the next one, but she gets away as well. So we've got 2 there that get away. Yeah. You have Gunther, who is obviously killed by Tracy,
onto a spiky board.
That's like henchman territory. So again, are there any honourable mentions? I guess that's.
I don't think there are.
No,
not that leap to mind, anyway.
No, I don't think so. It's when you think about it, actually, in the Majesties, loads of great action, but the two main villains kind of get away, don't they? So,
they do.
Interesting.
That is the biggest travesty of the entire series, as far as I'm concerned, that there was never any resolution to that. Dude, man, if I could invent a time machine, I'd go back and have a word with George. Just do one more. Just do one more for Tommy, and we'll leave it there. Yeah.
Leave it there.
Anyway, all right. So what are we going to now then? Is it my favourite with Live and Let Die?
Not quite. Let's just go with Diamonds. Just have a quick look, because obviously we've got Blofeld.
Yeah.
Again, didn't die. Honourable mentions: Wint and Kid, Bambi and Thumper, both henchman, henchwomen territory, so we can't go there. I guess who else is there? Dr. Metz, I don't know, but he didn't die, did he?
I tell you what, though,
it's tricky.
Again, there's a good death in here that isn't related to a villain, sadly, which is obviously the scorpion down the neck. That will send a shiver down your spine, won't it?
That was a good one. That's an honourable mention. I know not main villain related, but that's definitely a good honourable mention. So what? Just slightly on that. Obviously, loads of people listening will have seen that photo where the initial take was him putting the scorpion in the mouth as opposed to behind the back. Yeah. Now, I would have loved it if they kept it, because obviously he's a dentist as well, so you got that link. And I think it's just that little bit more evil as well. I would like that. Would you have been keen on that?
No. I mean, yes, I would. I wouldn't be keen to have a scorpion in my mouth, is what I was saying there. No, absolutely. That's horrific, man. I remember seeing, what was it? Was it I'm a Celebrity or something? One of those jungle shows, reality shows, years ago. I was watching it, and there was a challenge where somebody had to put a tarantula in their mouth.
Right.
And they were working in pairs. And so the one person had to pick it up. I ain't doing that. I'm not picking up no spider. But then the other person had to open their mouth while their partner put the tarantula in their mouth, and they just had to hold it in there for 30 seconds. And then they could open their mouth and take it out. And the spider would just be in there chilling out. Yeah. Well, exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's out of order. But anyway, horrific. I couldn't do either of those. I couldn't do the picking up of the spider, right? And I certainly couldn't have it in my mouth. How did you feel about that? Because you're a thrill seeker kind of guy. You like a bit of that sort of stuff. Would you be able to pick? Would you be able to pick up a spider without freaking out? B, would you be able to stick it in your mouth?
No problem with picking it up. Yeah, that's totally fine. Putting it in my mouth would be a bit weird. It depends on the size, because if it's small enough to crawl down your throat, you'd be a bit like, oh, I don't want that.
Yeah, would you? No.
But if it's this big hairy, also tarantulas are hairy, so you get a bit like, oh, I'm not quite sure about that. So obviously I wouldn't be enjoying it, but if it had to happen, then I would probably imagine that I could do it. But I haven't got any arachnophobia or anything like that. I'm picking up spiders, no problem at all.
Definitely that. Yeah.
But not great. So but this scorpion, I think I definitely wouldn't want to put one of those in my mouth. That's for sure.
There's something, the vulnerability of having that in your mouth, I think is horrific. And I don't know though. What would you rather have? Would you rather have the scorpion in your mouth or back down the back of your shirt? Or
on your forearm as you're drinking a little bit of whiskey? What would you do then?
All that. There's another scorpion tail there.
Hey.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that is a memorable thing, isn't it? That's one of those things that would stick with you for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
All right. So we're in a tricky stretch of films where there isn't a particularly or any villain death at all, really. So all right, that's that one put to bed. Next film, what we got? We
have got your Live and Let Die. Oh, Mr. Big, Dr. Kananga meets his demise. You mentioned it all already. Now, this I think another thing that we need to mention is deaths that cause debate. And I think up until this point, generally they've either been really good or all right, but no kind of, they get people talking and debating.
Yeah.
However, Kananga's death, his inflated opinion of himself, gets brought up a lot.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, I can see you're eager to chat about it. Now, what is it about this? Why do you love it? You're obviously in favour of it.
Well, I don't know if I'm in favour of it, but I love it. It's so silly, but I mean, what do you do, right? If you've got the little gas pellet thing, right? What would happen in real life if that were to happen? Just like, I guess your belly would expand and explode, and it would be a bit grotesque, and your entrails would be hanging out all over the place.
Well,
you can't do that. It does, but you can't do that in 1973 in a Roger film, can you? That's kind of overstepping the mark.
Yeah.
so having him inflate and then lift off the ground and hit the ceiling is just brilliant. I think it's so ridiculous, but I wouldn't want to lose the line that Roger says, because I like to use that a lot, as often as I can. If somebody, if somebody's being a bit highfalutin or whatever, I like to say a bastardization of the inflated opinion of himself.
To the person in question, or to someone else about the person?
Usually just to myself under my breath, right. as I walk along with the Bond theme playing in my imagination. Nice. Just that. But obviously it's ridiculous. But let's not forget, this is Live and Let Die we're talking about, which is the only Bond film that bends the rules of reality with a bit of magic and stuff, doesn't it? It's got all that going on. So if you're going to do something a bit over the top, then maybe Live and Let Die is the one you do it in. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think do you think they should have done something else? Is my question to you.
Well, before I get to that, I think I'm of the mindset that I'm happy to keep it as it is. Like, I think it is outrageous. I think it's a bit crazy, but I like you said, Live and Let Die has the voodoo, has the magic. Baron Samedi on the train at the end, the shot with the thing, and he comes back up again, and all that sort of stuff going on. So, yeah, it is crazy. I see that the compressed air and all that is an interesting aspect, but I wouldn't class it as any petard type moment.
It's not, is it?
So that's where it's potentially missing. So I'm happy to keep it as it is, because some people say, "Oh, it's absolutely atrocious. It shouldn't be in there," and I can see their point, because it is mental. But I just have to say though, their fight is brilliant, and I love it. Like, it
is. I like that thing he does with the dagger when he goes up high with it. That's cool.
There's some sort of, you can imagine like he's been trained by Samedi or some sort of voodoo sort of fighter who sort of trained him, and
it's quite Cobra Snake-like.
Yeah,
isn't it?
exactly. Yeah, and I really like that, and the whole fight and the build up, and then obviously they get into the water with the shark, and and it is a bit crazy. It is out there, and I understand the people that absolutely hate it, but I think I wouldn't call it I definitely wouldn't call it like would you say it's the most outlandish death? I suppose we're going to come to some more.
It's the most outlandish that jumps into my mind right now.
But I don't think that makes it the worst death by any means. I think it's good. But going back to your earlier question, would I choose something else for it? I'm happy to keep it in the film, but I'm just trying to think, what else could they have done if it was related to the heroin smuggling, or he had, maybe because he had the two faces, didn't he? The Mr. Big Mask. Maybe if he caught in fire and his face, this is pretty grotesque now, but his face melted, so it almost took away his actual face like a mask. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty hard hitting.
I do like that, and I thought with Kananga there are several opportunities that you could pursue. Right, obviously you've got the poppy fields and the heroin. That's his business, right? So there's an angle that you could potentially play there. You've got the two-faced thing, right? So absolutely, there's that. The part of me is like, well, you could do, you got the voodoo angle, but obviously you've already had a bit of that with Samedi and his name escapes me now. The other dude with
Dambala.
That's him. You've already had a bit of that, falling into the snakes and doing the funky dance and all that. Part of me is like, well, maybe you could do something with the sharks, but I don't think that's poetic enough. No. And then the face, but then the other thing that I'm thinking as well is, well, hold on, we've got another kept woman situation here with Solitaire. Maybe you could have come up with something like that, where maybe Solitaire puts a curse on him or something that makes him do something funky, and then there's that angle where she gets her revenge on him for all the years that he's kept her tied down or whatever. So yes, granted, I say I love it because it's so ridiculous and it just makes me laugh, and whatever anybody says, whether good or bad, it's fucking memorable. You remember that one, don't you?
Yeah. Would you class it as iconic or not?
No,
it's not, is it?
No,
it's definitely memorable. Okay,
well, what rating is it though? That's the question.
We got two different scales. We've got the iconic, the memorable, or the normal, and we've got the great, the good, the all right, or the shit.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we've got the memorable side of things.
Yeah.
On the other one, I think we can safely say it's not great.
Maybe it's memorable and shit. Do you know what I mean?
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe that's the combo. Because granted, it's not the best thing in the world.
No.
But on the flip side of that, I do love it because it does make me chuckle.
And equally, all right kind of doesn't do it justice. I think being shit is better than being all right.
Yeah. You can be really shit in a good way, I think.
It's good shit.
Maybe. Yeah. There you go. Good shit. Okay. Maybe that's it. That makes sense in my head anyway.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe no one else is thinking the same. But yeah, again, people, let us know what you think of Kananga's death, because it certainly does cause a lot of debate, this one.
Yeah, because there's no poetic petard or anything. It's just a little thing that he's been given. Pop it in the gob.
And also, we've only heard about it in the last few minutes, whereas it's a lot nicer if, for instance, we're going to come to this later, and I'm not saying this is a good death, but just in terms of what I'm getting at, Tomorrow Never Dies, you see the CVAC drill really on in the film. Obviously, it happens at the end. With this thing, we've only seen this bullet thing, 3 or 4 minutes ago, and now it's being used. Whereas it's a lot nicer if it's something is foreshadowed a lot earlier in the film, and you see it, and you're like, oh, okay, and then it feels you're more rewarded when it's used if you've had it for a little bit of time and it's in your mind. So
see, what you needed perhaps was, we obviously didn't have one, but maybe that was the Q scene that was missing. Do you know what I mean? That was the moment where Q gave it to Bond early on in the film. Maybe that was it. But equally, there is a little bit of that going on where he does use his magnet watch to get the bullet. So that's kind of cool. And we saw the magnet watch in a beautiful display at the beginning of the film, must be said. Yeah. Stunningly beautiful execution of that, with a great line as well. Beautifully done.
And the inflatable sofa with whispers really good. I love. I mean, that is great. I really like that. Nice, and Kananga's reaction when he kind of falls off as well. I think that's really good.
Yeah.
So we're going memorable. But shit. But good shit.
Yeah.
Memorable but good shit.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I don't dislike it. I love it because of what it is, I think, is my answer to that.
I think that's fair. Yeah, I think that's safe.
All
Brilliant.
Right, sweet. Okay. Now the Golden Gun, Chris.
Yes. Okay, now we're talking. We've got Scaramanga, we've got Bond, we've got the Funhouse. Now, we've seen the Funhouse in the pre-titles. We've seen Scaramanga get his kill against Rodney, so we know we've learned throughout the film he's an expert marksman. This is going to be the ultimate duel. I love it when they have their dinner, they say, we are the best and all that sort of stuff. It's great moment. Now they have their back-to-back, don't they, the 20 paces, and then Scaramanga's disappeared, and you think, okay, now, and then there's a bit of intrigue, what's going to, how is he going to find him and everything like this. We go through the funhouse that we've already seen, so we kind of know what's coming. There are a couple of little twists to it. But ultimately, you have Bond that replaces the waxwork, catches Scaramanga off guard, and kills him. Now, do you think the waxwork of Bond is too obvious that at the start of the film you see it, oh, that's going to be Bond at the end of the film, that's what he's going to use? Or do you think, oh, no, maybe not?
I don't think so, because when I see that at the beginning of the film, that tells me we've got a villain here who's obsessed with Bond. He's going to stop at nothing to kill him. And obviously you see the marksman skills displayed early on in the film. So that shows you what a formidable villain that Scaramanga is. So I don't immediately leap to that. I don't think. Are you satisfied
with the fun house and the duel and everything at the end? Do you feel it's are you happy with that sort of thing?
Well, here's the thing, right? I love the funhouse idea where you've got the dude at the very beginning going through the whole thing. There's some foreshadowing for you, because when Bond finally enters, you're like, holy shit, okay, he's got a lot to deal with coming up. You know what I mean? So there's that. The stakes are kind of up a bit there of tension. So I like that. And then, I do. What I'm really glad they didn't do was that bit that you can still see in the trailer where they have their duel, but then Scaramanga runs off, right? You see him running off, hiding behind the thing. And it turns out that he does have more than one bullet, and he's got loads of bullets, and Roger says to
that would just weaken his character, I think.
100%. And there's even a thing where Bond says to him, "Oh, now I know how you do it, Scaramanga," and it's like that completely neuters Scaramanga. That was a bad idea, but it was in the script late enough that they shot the whole thing, and it's like that was going to be a twist at the end there. And like I say, you could see it on the trailer on YouTube. Even you can still see that footage and stuff. But that makes Scaramanga so shit, in my opinion, because it's like the thing that makes him cool is he only needs one, and
he's too conceited to consider otherwise.
Yeah,
surely.
Yeah.
Too confident.
That line as well is a thing of beauty, where he's like, I only need one. That's. Oh, dude, I get aroused by that, because look at the confidence that man displays. That is a villain worthy of Bond going head to head, and you being worried for Bond as well because he's that good, you know. So yeah, I do like the Funhouse. Obviously, it's a product of its time. Like, you know, you have that sort of thing where he presses the button on the stairs and sort of skids down the skid. It's very dated by today's standards. If somebody did that in a film today, obviously it'll probably look very different.
I quite like that bit.
I don't know, but you know what I mean. Though it's a bit. It's a bit. I don't know. I don't know whether. But again, it's a product of its time, isn't it? So yeah, and I think being shot right between the eyes by Bond is a great little send off there. And I do think there is a poetic end to him there. What do you think? Are you not so keen on that?
Well, it's tricky, isn't it? Because I think it's possibly the only way he could have died, in terms of, you know, how they set it up to be a contest between who is the best shot.
Yeah.
Because if for instance somehow they'd had a scuffle, or the guns had got mislaid and they had to have a fisticuffs, I don't know if that would have felt right. Yeah. Because it's all about who is the best marksman and who can outwit the other, and Bond does exactly that, you know. So I think that side of thing is the only way it could have happened. But I guess with the Funhouse elements, you get that bit where he kind of hits the glass and he's going through the scaffolding, isn't he? And then because you've stayed most of this time with Bond, and it's basically him encountering the Funhouse elements, and you see him on the scaffolding, and then you come back to Scaramanga, and when you haven't seen him since the duel, I don't think, and then suddenly it's him wandering around, and you just see the hand, and you see that the fingers are all there, and you're like, oh, here we go, and there's that slow turn. And what I do like about this is that when Scaramanga, he either catches him out the corner of his eye, or he hears the movement, but he turns, and he realizes in that split second that he knows that Bond has got the better of him. Yeah. And that look that he gives is like, you know, completely, he totally knows that he's been done over by Bond, and he was, totally not expecting it. And that moment alone, I think, is worthy to keep it as it is, because I love that bit.
There is a nice little touch, because the great thing about that, obviously, is that he's built this whole encounter up in his mind. He's been the one person he's wanted to get the whole time. And the fact that he's been bested, and there's that respect, it was almost like well done, you got me. You know, it's almost like that, isn't it? Which is very nice. So so in your opinion then, the whole mannequin angle thing, do you think that's a bit much then? You're not a fan of that?
I don't know. I think having that at the start, it was the only way they could do it, I think. But I didn't know if I feel like I would have. Do you think it would have been possible to spend a bit more time with Scaramanga to see what he's doing, or do we need to spend the whole time with Bond?
Well, yeah, that's a good question, and what I would say to that is I think you need perhaps to spend more time with Bond, and Bond needs to be on the back foot throughout the whole thing, because he's got all these surprises, and I think because we've seen so many of the surprises early on, that neuters it a little. Yeah. I don't know. It could soften it a little bit, because we've already seen it as the audience, but then we know what Bond's got in store for him, so there's a little bit of tension there, I guess. There's two ways of looking at that, and I guess I don't know the answer to that.
I think maybe seeing one or two new things in the Funhouse would have been good. Obviously, we do cut to Knick Knack a little bit outside of Bond every now and again, and I think that's good. Yeah.
See, do you know what? Do you know what I think we should have had then? Maybe if you want some more Scaramanga, what we should have had is Bond going through those same moves within the funhouse, but then we cut to Scaramanga making each of those things a little bit more difficult than they usually are. Maybe he's like, in the same way that Zorin has his steeplechase thing where the fences go up higher and all that kind of stuff, maybe there's a little switch that he presses on each scene that brings in more weaponry or something, or makes it harder that Bond has to deal with. So there's a bit more of that trickster element to him, I guess.
Yeah. Or Knick-Knack doing... Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? Because Knick-Knack meant to be controlling, but he's also meant to be giving Scaramanga a challenge as well as the person. So, because at the start in the pre-titles he says, "Oh, it's something we haven't had yet before, Monsieur," and maybe we should have seen something else we haven't seen in the final, like just one or two little things. But overall, I think it is the right way to go. Would you class it as either iconic, memorable, or just normal? What would you say?
It's a tricky one. I don't think it's iconic.
No.
I think it's good.
Yeah, I'd say memorable and good, because I think the whole wax mannequin, whether you like it or not, it's definitely memorable. Like no one's gonna forget that and how it happened. Whether you think it's good or all right, I'm kind of on the verge of good or all right. I think the fact that it's Scaramanga and that look that he gives, I'm hitting good rather than all right. But I would have maybe liked just a little bit more in the build-up, I think. And the line is quite good. Where's Scaramanga? Flat on his coup de grace. I think that's a nice little payoff line afterwards as well, so that's good.
I really like the idea of Bond having an opposite number like that. Somebody who's as good as him, but the evil version, and the two of them going head-to-head. You know, I suppose you get a little flavour of that with 006, don't you, and GoldenEye. But like the as much flack as the Man with Golden Gun gets, I really love that film, man. I really do. I'm a massive fan of it.
It's entertaining, man.
And I love Scaramanga. I think he's a brilliant villain, and just the concept, the man with the golden gun. He only takes one bullet with him because he only needs one. He's that good. That's great stuff, man. I'm a big fan of that.
Oh, here's an idea. I mean, obviously, because at the start of the pre-titles, he doesn't have his gun. He's got to try and find his gun, doesn't he? Yeah. What if he and Bond, like Bond wasn't allowed his gun or ran out of bullets or whatever, and literally he couldn't use his Wolfer. So he had to find the golden gun, and Scaramanga had to find the golden gun.
Hold on a minute.
And it was at the point where they literally would both had an opportunity, but Bond bets him and then catches him and does a shot in between the forehead. Would that have worked? Or not?
If Bond had shot Scaramanga with the golden gun, there's some extra poetic justice in that. But let's just think, how would that have happened? Because obviously you have the duel scene on the beach. Yeah. So how do we get the gun away from Scaramanga back into the funhouse?
I think he would have had to use a different gun on the beach.
Yeah.
And then Knick-Knack's hidden it like he had in the first one. Yeah. But obviously,
I do like that. If there's a way of making that work, where it's a scramble to get the golden gun, both of them, or at least a gun, and it just happens to be the golden gun that Bond grabs, and
that's it. Or he could just fire the solar laser while he's bent over on the beach or something.
Or that'll do the job. Yeah, big time. Yeah. All right, nicely done. Next one, Spy Who Loved Me, the most iconic Bond movie of the 70s. Most people would agree with that statement, I would suggest.
I don't think so. Yeah.
But I would say, not a great death for the villain.
No. So I this is another one that's a little bit disappointing. I think on the whole, he's a villain that doesn't sort of rank too highly with many people. I think he's generally middle of the park. Yeah. He's got his webbed hands and what have you. He's got the wanting to create the world beneath the sea and all that. He's got sort of an interesting side to his character. He sits around a lot and presses a lot of buttons.
He does, doesn't he?
Obviously, physically, there's not. He's that. I mean, if you ever see Kurt Jürgens when he's younger, he's a tall bloke, and he could certainly have been a physical force in his younger days. Yeah. But obviously, he's a little bit older in Spy, so he hasn't got that aspect going for him. But yeah.
So he's one of those villains, isn't he? Obviously, he's got Jaws to do his mucky work for him, and they send Jaws out to go and do it. But so do you know what? I think with Stromberg all around, and I know obviously at the time or leading up to it anyway, they were thinking of doing the Spectre angle, so he would have been Blofeld, and then of course all the nonsense stopped that from happening. So I almost think Stromberg is almost like a half-baked villain a little bit, whereby, he's this fish man, but you never really see it. It's never really made a thing of it. I mean, you do see the web fingers a little bit, but it's not ever really.
No.
It's almost like an idea they nearly went with, but didn't bother, and just sort of left that one shot in of the hand. Yeah. And you either notice that or you don't. It's never really been made a thing, is it?
No.
So here are my thoughts on this then. He's got his big long tube gun under the table. He's going to shoot Bond in the knackers, but he doesn't quite do it. He sets fire to his bottom instead.
Poor Rog.
And then, of course, I guess it's nice that Roger returns the favour and then shoots him in the knackers instead through the tube with his Walther, and then boom, boom, couple more.
I think he shoots him like 4 times. I think.
Yeah, that's quite dark, I guess, that amount of shots to a man who's just sitting there in a chair. But it's a bit sort of lumb, isn't it? It's not really the most poetic ending for a man like that. You see, I feel like it needed to be a fish-related death, personally.
Drowning or something like that, or
stick
eaten
him
by
in
a
the
shark, or
exactly. Stick him in the lift, do the little button thing, down into the water, shark bites his head off. I think that's perhaps the way to get rid of Stromberg, because that's. I don't think that's. It's not like you have any writing problems to make that happen either. It's not like there's something stopping that from happening. Yeah, like we were saying with the Golden Gun, if we would have changed that a little bit, or with Goldfinger and Odd Job and switching that around, there's problems there that you'd have to solve in the writing, isn't there?
Because obviously Jaws and the shark is the big one for the ending.
I suppose it is, isn't it? Yeah,
and that's kind of nicely done with Jaws biting the shark. So I kind of think we couldn't mess that. I really like that. I think with Stromberg, there's another little bit relating to.
Sorry, Jaws biting the shark, man. That's beautiful.
That's brilliant. I think it's fantastic. There's another great little bit with Stromberg, which is kind of very subtle. Is when he's speaking to Jaws and he's saying the lady and the man on the train, let them get ashore and kill them. And at that time, he's eating fish food. So he's eating a bit of fish food and popping it in the pond, eating a little bit of fish food, popping it in the pond. And I really like that because it's subtle. And the web fingers are quite cool as well. But he definitely needed some sort of watery grave death type thing, I think. Yeah. Like, we've mentioned the death. Obviously, we've seen the shark. Sharks, you don't want them too common because they do appear in a lot of films and stuff. And I think the Jaws shark thing works. And I guess the tube gun is almost like a sort of a harpoon thing, which is kind of underwater related, but I think there needed to be something else. I think just I don't know. He's got that model of Atlantis with the water. I don't know. But I suppose they wouldn't have a scuffle, would they? But Bond slamming his head in it and getting water.
Yeah, here's how I think you do it. Right. Obviously, I'd forgotten about Jaws with the shark, so you can't do that twice. I think maybe you have his fish tank that's got a super poisonous puffer fish in it. You know that one they say lives in the Amazon, that if you have a wee in the river, it swims up the stream and balloons out inside your peen. Maybe it's that. He's got that fish in the tank.
How graphic are we going to go?
But hey, that would be a horrible way to go, wouldn't it? But maybe that he's got his fish tank or whatever with a nasty, because he does that line, doesn't he? He's like, there's beauty and there is ugliness or whatever with the different fishes. And there is death. Maybe you have that big ugly poisonous fish in there, and he does a speech about how the fish is the most poisonous fish on the planet or whatever.
Bond does it as well, doesn't he? Because he said those dorsal spines, they're poisonous, and then he goes handsome but deadly, and he's basically talking about himself. Handsome and deadly, and so it could be like the fish. If because you get to that point
you're
where
onto something there.
Yeah, because I think you get to the point where Bond and Triple X escape in the skateboard because things are flooding, aren't they? And maybe rather than the shot, Stromberg gets the thing becomes flooded, but the tank sort of bursts. And he either lands on the fish or within the room somehow he sort of falls onto it, and then you've got the Bond style fish killing him. Plus he's going to drown if not, so he's going to be underwater, and he's going to, rather than just lying on the table for the rest of his days. He's going to be sort of buried underwater. Obviously, Atlantis, I guess, goes down. But then you got the fish and you got the underwater stuff, and I think that would be a good way to go, and that would be memorable as well.
It would, wouldn't it? Yeah, I think there's definite potential there, because I just think the death we had from was very underwhelming, wasn't it? You know what I mean? I think that's the issue with that. It's just like, oh, okay, I'm going to shoot him 4 times. And there's no real poetry to it. There's no comeuppance in terms of what the plot is. There's certainly no petard.
No, it's a shame. I think the fact that Bond, he does shoot him like a few times. You can see he's sort of, his anger's coming out a little bit, and you don't get in all of Roger's sort of killing moments, you don't get that. So that's kind of a nice bit, but I think it needed to be something like a drowning or the fish, or something like that. It just would have been for a better thing. So if we're looking at the scale, then we've got iconic, no; memorable, no; normal on that side of things. And then we've got great, no; good, no; all right, or shit. Would you call it all right or shit?
It's definitely down there, isn't it? It's all right. It's functional. Like that death could have happened to the lowliest henchman, and it would have. You know what I mean? It's not. There's nothing special about that death. So I wouldn't say it's shit in the sense that it's not like a badly executed death.
No.
But at the same time, it's not great either. So I think maybe it's at the low end of all right.
Yeah. So
it's not shit, but it's just over the line of all right.
Of all right. I think that's spot on. It's normal, and it's just over the line of all right with that one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because it's like the end of level boss fight on the Nintendo, isn't it? It's like you need to make that a bit special, and it's just not, unfortunately. It's just a bit meh.
That's it. What about the next one, though? We're on to Moonraker.
Well, Moonraker is definitely more poetic, isn't it? The way, Drax gets offed, because the whole idea, obviously, is master race in space. So he gets, darted, stuck out the door. Nice little quip. Off he goes. So that's nice. How about you? How do you feel about that? Is that a good send off for Drax? Do you think it could have been better? Do you think it was about right?
For me, it's absolutely perfect. I think there's no other way, no other death that would have been better for Drax. The obsession is space. That's where he ends up. That's what kills him ultimately. Obviously, he's got the dart in him as well. But he's almost dying doing what he's dedicated his life to, and almost, I think there's, for a split moment, he probably thought, I'm getting to see what space is like, even if it's for like the split second before obviously he's gone. So I think it's perfect. I think there is not another way I think Drax should go. I'm completely brilliant, like you said, the quip as well, and the build up towards it, where he's got the gun and desolated Mr. Bond, and then just a wrist heartbroken Mr. Drax, and I think that's a nice little bit. And then take a giant leap for mankind, or is it something like that, isn't it? It's and it looks good as well. I think the death
it does, cool. And I think so. For me, I've always thought a horrible way to go is like your man Chris in You Only Live Twice, obviously. Cord cut, there he is, he's drifting out into space. And there's nothing you can do about it. There you are. There's no way you can move. You're just, the momentum of you moving forward is all there is. And you're just there, and you've got to wait for your oxygen to run out. And that's just watching that tick down, staring out into the blackness of space would be probably a horrible way to go, wouldn't it? When you think about it, just being alone with your thoughts and just knowing it's coming and just waiting for the countdown. So there's that. Now, obviously for Drax, he's been darted, so it's going to be quicker than him. He's not got a spacesuit on, so as soon as he's sucked out there,
that's it.
It's going to be game over, very sharpish, isn't it? But that's all right, I guess. It's like, it would have been nice for him to have some time to think about what he's done, but I'm happy for it. He absolutely should have been killed by space itself. That's a good way to send him off.
Definitely. I think there is that moment where obviously he's been shot with a dart. He's not quite dead, but he's been shot with a dart. He knows he's going to die. And he knows it once against a villain that knows that Bond is sort of, beaten him and got one up on him. Because he's someone, talks about his munificence being boundless. And thinks of himself as basically God, doesn't he, or a god?
Does, yeah.
And so there's no way that a lowly British agent would ever be able to stop him. And so there's that moment where obviously he realizes, this is it. So he'll have that small moment where he realizes that he's not as special as he thinks. Yeah. But then obviously he gets put in the airlock, and then brilliant. Yeah, I love it. I think it's great.
It's nice.
Yeah. So are we talking, if we're looking at iconic, memorable, normal, what would you say on those things?
I would say it's memorable.
Yeah.
Don't think it's iconic.
No, I think it's a strange word, sort of something being iconic, and it's 100% memorable, but it's not. If you're looking at a montage of deaths, but you're only allowed, say, 10, maybe 5 or 10, it probably wouldn't be on there. Maybe not. Maybe the top 5. I don't think it would be in there anyway.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah,
but it is memorable, and it is absolutely perfect for Drax. So, would you class it as great, good, all right, or shit?
I'd say somewhere between great and good.
Yeah, I was thinking exactly the same thing, because it's not. I think if you're thinking in terms of the character, I'd put it as great. Yeah. If you're thinking in terms of kind of just the overall feel, I'd probably put it as a strong good. So I think between good and great and memorable.
Yeah, sounds good to me, mate. Yeah.
Okay,
nicely
cool.
done. All right, cool. For your eyes only, Chris.
Alice Christatos. Okay, so we've gone from someone flying out to space to someone basically being stabbed in the back. So obviously they're on St. Cyril's in Greece on the mountain, and this is kind of like an interesting one, because I've heard a lot of people say that it shouldn't have been. So this is another one where Bond doesn't kill the main villain. In this case, it's Columbo. He obviously kills him, and now from one side of it, it's great because they used to, at one time they were like brothers, but now they hate each other, sort of thing. Yeah. And you think, well, okay, they've had a past. There's they try and outdo each other and try and put each other in the shit, so to speak. And so from Columbo killing him, you think, okay, that's good. But then this is the man who ultimately was behind sort of Melina's parents' killing. And you're thinking, well, hang on a minute. Her whole story is about avenging her parents' death. And okay, she shot bolt Hector Gonzalez, and I guess she's got a bit of that, but it was, the money was paid by Locke, and ultimately that was under Christatos' orders. So she doesn't get the main person behind it. So I've heard people debate that. What are your thoughts on that aspect?
Well, yes, that's the thing. Gonzalez was the trigger man. He definitely gets his comeuppance. Crossbow in the back. Boom. Great. Good stuff. But for me, right, if I'm in, Melina's shoes, I'm taking down everybody involved in this. That's Gonzalez is just number one on the list. Boom, he's gone. Right, let's get everybody involved. So I absolutely think she should have pulled the trigger on Christatos as well, because he's the man that, if it wasn't for him, Gonzalez wouldn't have pulled the trigger. Gonzalez, at the end of the day, was just doing his orders, wasn't he? Just a hired gun. There was no extra malice involved there, whereas Christatos was the mastermind, and I definitely think Christatos needed an arrow between the eyes. But there is, of course, that, before setting out on revenge, first dig 2 graves and all that sort of stuff. There's that lesson from Bond that he gives to Melina. And so it's kind of like, well, is that sort of like an arc where it's like she's now at peace because she's not set out on the dark path of revenge. She's actually at peace now without having to do it. There is that. I think that's obviously what they're going for. But what do you think? I
don't think that kind of works for me, because she's like, out of my way, James. She's this is what she wants. She wants to put that bolt between his eyes, and ultimately she's denied it. And for me, I think the Melina revenge mission has a stronger element to it than Columbo's kind of revenge mission on his so-called sort of adversary. So I think potentially they missed a trick. For me personally, I think I would have preferred to see Melina sort of get the better of Christatos. But what do you think of his actual demise being a knife in the back? So we've had that sort of battle where you've got Bond and Columbo, and the infiltration of St. Cyrill's is brilliant. I love
Beautiful.
it. But you've got that battle where you've got Bond and Eric Kriegler, and then you've got Columbo and Christatos, and they're battling away, and then Bond is and then basically Christatos is about to throw a knife in Bond's back as he's blocking Melina, isn't he? But then obviously Columbo then gets him with the knife, and it's okay, but I don't know. I find it a slightly underwhelming death for me.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. There's like you say, the two of those characters have a bit of backstory as well. Once we were like brothers and all that. But that's not the emotional pull for us as the audience, is it? It's really not. We're rooting for Melina, and we all of us would put ourselves in Melina's shoes and will want the same thing, won't we? If you imagine if you were Melina and you'd gone through that, you'd be like, right, I'm taking them all down. And it absolutely would have been more powerful in my book if she'd have, speared him or whatever it was. Like even if it was a knife and it wasn't a crossbow, because obviously she's already dispatched Gonzalez that way, so maybe you don't do this similar thing twice.
It'd have to be some sort of tweak on it.
Yeah,
but what if he's about Christatos? If they switch positions, not definitely in that particular location, but in terms of Christatos has Columbo under. He's about to throw a knife at Columbo, and then she manages to get past wherever she is and shoots him just as he's about to throw. Yeah. So it's actually her that kills him, saving Columbo, and that way round. I think that would have been nice. Yeah, I think that would have been nice.
It is. So that is a tricky one, because I think you would need a little bit of dialogue there, because obviously we've had that set up with Bond giving her the talk. Hey, don't do the revenge. Doesn't lead anywhere good, right? But of course, then if she does actually succeed, we need to acknowledge that a little bit, don't we? So I feel like it's a tricky one, because then obviously she would go up to Bond and he would say something along the lines of, do you feel better now? And she'd go, yeah, I feel great, brilliant, like Felix at the end of License. And she's skipping off into the sunset or whatever. But then that means that emotional scene earlier is kind of neutered a bit.
It's tricky, isn't it? You'd need to rework it a bit.
But then I guess maybe it's the thing of like, she has to do it. She has to save Columbo, like you say. And it's like she didn't have a choice. She had to kill Christatos because he was being a dick. She's got to take him down. And then there's a double whammy in that, I guess. But whatever. Like I'd happily get rid of the dig two graves line, or maybe not, because that is a good line. But I don't feel the need for that I don't think that's as important as her having her hero moment of getting the villain.
Definitely. And what about the actual way that he's dispatched? Obviously, we said it's just a knife in the back. That's, there's no petard, there's no sort of, it's something that you've seen a million times before. Is there any other way or that? Well,
Christatos is a funny one, because he doesn't have a sort of a thing, does he? He's just like a nasty dude. And you have such an iconic death for Locke, don't you? I mean, that's an amazing great moment there. And so my gut feeling is, well, surely you just lob Christatos off the edge, or Christatos maybe ends up hanging off the edge side and Bond kicks him and off he goes. But then obviously we've had exactly that with Locke.
As well.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of falling going on. And so, I would not lose that Locke scene for love and money. No, I think that's brilliant. And as much as Roger didn't like it, I think that was needed to show that Roger could kick some ass and be dark when the time was right. I think that was a beautiful thing. That's dude. The more I think about that Locke scene, that's a great death. So it's hard to beat that man in this film. It really is a tricky one. So I don't know. What do you do with Christatos?
So are we calling iconic, memorable, or normal? I'd definitely say normal.
Yeah, definitely normal.
And if we're saying great, good, all right, or shit, I'd kind of just say all right.
It's all right.
Yeah, all right and normal. But it just needed something else to it, I think.
The tricky thing is, I think, when it comes to Bond villains, is when you have the Bond villains who are just essentially normal dudes, there's not a thing about them. You know what I mean? It's like, you could say Goldfinger's a normal dude, but he has that greed thing, that obsession with gold, which totally sets him apart from everybody else, even though he's not got a metal arm or something. And it's a tricky one. I think Dominic Green suffers for that as well, that he's essentially just a normal dude who's a bit loopy. So yeah, it's a tricky one. He doesn't have a thing. He doesn't have a petard by which to hoist him, really, does he? No.
But there we go. That's not too bad. Let's roll on to Octopussy then. I think we've got two villains we can talk about here. We can talk about obviously Kamal Khan, and we can talk about General Orlov. So let's start with Orlov, seeing as he's bumped off first in the film. Now, what are your thoughts on his particular demise?
Do you know what? I think this is a really good one.
I love this one.
Yeah, I think it's a really... I remember that, man. When I was a little boy, that scene really stuck in my mind. That, just running along the tracks and holding on and being dragged along and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's a really good one. I like that a lot, man. Obviously, you're a big Octopussy man, so I'm keen to hear your thoughts on it. Yeah,
huge. I think it's fantastic. Perfect way for the villain to go. I think as well. It's crossing the border. It's the East-West Germany. He's been trying to chase and track down Bond, and obviously he knows about the jewelry and everything like that. And I just think his motivations, and even though he's been shot, and Gogol, when he eventually reaches him and says, "Oh, you're just a common thief," and he's like, "Yes, but tomorrow I'll be a hero of the Soviet Union." So even in death, he's happy, thinking that he's accomplished, in terms of he thinks a bomb's going to go off, the Americans will withdraw and Russia can conquer Europe, sort of thing. In his mind, he's dying a happy man in a weird way, even though he's just been shot and dragged along a train track. He's a bit like not a kamikaze, but a martyr sort of thing.
No, he's all about Soviet glory and death, isn't he? He's like a Klingon. They love dying in battle, don't they? Because it's like, today is a good day to die and all that stuff.
Exactly.
He's like that. I think he's a great villain, that dude, man. Stephen Burkoff plays him to absolute perfection. Great villain. I feel like, how Orlov has those things where he's sort of like, he's just chatting away normal and then he gets all big and... I'd like to see some more of that from Christoph. Do you know what I mean? Christoph Blofeld, I would like the calmness I love of that in the Spectre meeting room, and just the slightest movement and the fear everybody has of this small man. But I would have liked him to have had a moment where he does flip out. That would be
good.
That would have been nice. Anyway, I digress. Great way for him to go. Very memorable. Do like it. That's brilliant. Okay.
So we're saying memorable and great for.
I think I am. Yeah,
I'd agree with that. I don't think you could class it as iconic, but I think it's definitely memorable. I'm the same as you when I was young and watching it, because you put yourself in Orlov's shoes at that point. You kind of like running, and you think he's going to get to the train, and then he's shot, and you're just like, he was that close to getting onto the train, but yet. Yeah. He still didn't mind because he thought his plan is going to be fine and go through. Yeah. So I think it's great. I really do, and and definitely memorable. So solid entry from Orlov there.
Good one, Orlov. What about his mate Kamal?
Kamal. Okay, so with this one, I think we haven't quite got a petard, have we? So he's in the plane. I think the build up to it is fantastic. Obviously, Bond, Gobinder out there and all that sort of stuff, fighting on the roof of the plane is amazing. Obviously, Gobinder's death is great, very memorable. And then Bond sort of tips the plates on the tail, and obviously the plane starts to go, kind of gets Octopussy. They dive out the plane at the last second, and then you see the plane sort of crash, and Kamal's got to go, and then it blows up. Yeah. For me, I would have preferred a bit of a better death for Khan. I think Orlov's is great. I definitely wouldn't say it's a bad death, but again, a plane crash, that's something you see in a lot of films. Yeah. And with Bond, we want it to be original and memorable. Yeah.
What I will say, I guess this doesn't really apply to Kamal, but I do love that plane sequence. Because that dude is proper up there, and you really feel that he's hanging on for dear life on the top of that plane, don't you? Do you reckon Roger really did that, or do you reckon that was a stunt?
He certainly did. Yeah, I remember him telling me the other day. Yeah, nice. He was. Sent me an email from from beyond the grave and said that he did all of his own stunts. So that's good.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, nice.
The jump from the horse onto the tail of the plane is absolutely incredible as well. Like that's a brilliant stunt, that one.
Yeah. So I enjoy that scene. Yeah, like you say there, I don't know whether it's a fitting end for Kamal. It's just all right. But it's not like a Stromberg death where you could have dispatched any number of henchmen like that. It is more of a featured death. There's a big thing happening, but there's not a lot of meaning behind it, or it's not a poetic moment. It's just a sort of by the numbers way of dispatching a villain.
Could you think of any particular poetic way that he could go? Because I mean, he's got the jewelry smuggling, and obviously it's tricky. You've got the sort of exiled Afghan prince, so I don't know if there's. I don't know. It's a weird one, isn't it? It's a tough one to think of with Khan. Yeah. Or maybe an alternative would be that Octopussy kills him. You know, because they've kind of been, rather than friends, they've kind of been business associates, and he obviously double crosses her and left her for dead. So maybe the other thing would have been her to kill him.
I don't know whether whether we'd feel that emotionally as the audience.
No,
I don't know. Maybe his little getaway plane is loaded with jewels, and maybe the jewels shift around a little bit during the fight, and the shifting of the weight is what causes the plane to crash, and he gets covered in his jewels. There we go.
Because it could be stalled. Like if you know, have you ever seen The Italian Job? It's amazing. Of course, it's one of the best films ever made. And you know the gold when it goes to and fro and it shifts and the bus is just waited. And you can imagine that's a really good way. Actually, obviously the plane interior would probably need to be a bit different. But if he has like a stash of all of his gems and gold or coins, whatever it is money, and then as Bond does the wings and the tail and the thing moves around, you see it sort of shift, and maybe. As it does go forward, it shifts down. Obviously, then doing the whole upside down thing with Bond hanging on would be tricky to do, unless it was locked up.
Wait, here's how we do it. I've solved it. Here's how we do it, right? Yeah. So the jewels have all been strapped down onto the plane, right? But they've not been strapped down very well, right?
No.
So the movement of the plane and the shifting and the shaking, we cut to a little bit of the ropes like straining a little bit, and then when the plane goes upside down, right, that's what breaks the ropes, and then they all breaks free. The whole plane loses its, whatever the word is.
You know what? I think rather than weight, because jewels don't weigh a lot unless you've got like a shed load, and to get that, you're talking like it wouldn't be possible. So I think it's his sort of. Not obsession, but it's his, he hears it, he sees whatever it is, the jewels or whatever it is, and that's what distracts him. Maybe that's part of the way, and a mix of things maybe. The thing is, he hasn't quite got that obsession, has he? We know he's a jewelry smuggler or likes to do that thing, and he likes sort of luxury and stuff. But he hasn't quite got that one definite obsession. But I think something
he needs to choke on his weighted dice. That's what he needs to do.
There we go.
That's the memorable Kamal Khan scene, isn't it? Is the loaded dice.
There we
go. Maybe something to do with that. I don't know.
Know how. But I think just a slight tweak there would have been good. But so with this one, we're talking iconic, no, memorable, or just normal.
It's all right.
Yeah. And it's not great. It's not good. And we're saying it's all right. So it's all right and it's normal.
Yeah.
I'd say it's on the upper end of all right compared to the Stromberg one.
It's not bad. I'm not disappointed by it. I just think I'm disappointed with Stromberg's send-off. With Kamal, I'm like, it's all right, but there was room for something else there.
Yeah. And particularly when you compare it to Orlov's, which was brilliant death.
That is a great death. Yeah, I do like that.
Definitely. Yeah. Okay, on to the last Roger Moore next, and we got A View to a Kill.
Yeah. Oh, mate.
There's what do you think about this one? Okay, so straight away, it's got to be like one of the most memorable deaths I think in the series. Easily. I mean, if we're talking iconic,
I'll tell you what, man. You sit tight, right? This is only going to make sense for our YouTube viewers, but I'm just gonna switch a little something up there. There we go. How about that?
Nice, Tommy. Right, I like it.
For our listeners at home, I've just put myself in the the Golden Gate Bridge for our viewers at home on YouTube. Right, man. I think that's as much as You Only Live Twice. A View to a Kill gets a lot of shtick.
Yeah.
That setting at the end, man, is iconic.
Yeah,
I don't care what anybody says. And also, I've said it many times before. I'm going to say it again. That shot of Bond hanging off the bottom of the Zeppelin, heading towards the Golden Gate Bridge, is sensational. Especially when you pair it with the bam, 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 boom, bam, bam. Brilliant. Love it.
Yeah, that whole lead up to getting onto the bridge. You've never seen anything like that before.
No.
Never seen it. And it's such an iconic location.
Yeah.
And the way that Zorin thinks he's putting Bond at risk by flying, he's on the mooring rope, flying him towards it as if he's going to hit it and smash and fall off. But yet Bond manages to tie the rope to the bridge, and then they try to get away, and then the battles as well. Obviously, Zorin comes off with his axe, and they tussle on top of the Golden Gate Bridge. It's incredible, and I think his death. Yeah, I'd call it iconic, and I think it's a great death as well because it's just that realization. So they have a really sort of good little battle going. Zorin is definitely on top for a lot of it. You can't do too much in sort of moving around because you're on this sort of small cable type thing. But there's definitely a good little battle going on. But that moment where Bond holds onto the axe and swipes Zorin so he falls, and then he's just hanging on to this to the sort of cable, and that moment he knows, Tom, he knows, doesn't he?
Yeah. That thing where he's hanging off and he's sort of slipping and he starts chuckling to himself, man, is such a work of genius from Christopher Walken there, because that dude is a nutter, right? Proper off his face Looney Tune, and the fact that he laughs when he knows he's about to die makes it even better. Like what a villain he is, man. A lot of respect for that. Yeah, great. And it's that thing, isn't it? Being like it's essentially a close quarters fight, isn't it? Where like you say, there's not a lot of movement going around, but in a different way, in the sense that it's not close quarters because you're in a tight little train carriage or something. It's close quarters because if you take one step the wrong way, perilous. You are dead.
That's it.
Great death for Zorin. Love it. Is he hoisted by his own petard? No, he's not. Is it poetic in terms of the microchips? No, it's not. But I still love it. And I think this might be an iconic one. I don't know. What do you think?
I would class it as iconic. I know the whole petard thing. I guess the closest thing you can say is his airship, his air blimp kind of is a part of it and became sort of entangled and everything. So there's a little bit of that in there. Yeah. And obviously Silicon Valley's not, it's not too far away. Moments ago, he was above Silicon Valley. So
well, maybe that's it, because the Golden Gate Bridge is kind of like the iconic scene of the whole world of tech and San Francisco, isn't it? It's like that goes hand in hand, really, doesn't it? It's like the Eiffel Tower of San Francisco and all that in it, really. Indeed. So no, I'm on board with that.
For me, it's iconic and it's like great. I think out of the good, all right and shit, I'm putting it at great, and out of iconic, it's memorable and iconic. I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what a ledge Christopher Walken is.
What a ledge. Superb. All right, I can go back to my normal background now.
There we go.
Sweet. Right. Okay, from dancing into the fire, Chris, we are living daylightsing it.
Yes.
Great link from Tommy there. That was a fantastic one.
What a sort of sublime little...
We are living daylightsing it.
Yeah, there we go. That's it. Okay, so now here we could potentially say we have two main villains.
Absolutely.
Saying the henchman, but we've got Koskov, we've got Whitaker. Koskov, as we know, obviously we don't see him die. Again, there's that debate when Pushkin says, "I'll put him on the plane to Moscow." "Oh, thank you, General, thank you," in the diplomatic bag. And you think, and some people are saying, right, what it means is he's going to be sent back to Moscow and being put to prison. Other people are saying, no, he's going to be sent back and killed, and it's basically that's what that means. So there is a debate over which way. But either way, that happens post the end of the film. So we don't get to know that. If he does indeed die, well, first of all, do you think he's sent back to be killed?
100%. That's my take on that. Yeah, for sure.
And do you think that's a good way for him to go, even though we don't see it?
Yeah, I don't think we have to be spoon-fed a lot of the time. I think sometimes when something is left up to your imagination, I tell you what I don't like. I don't like deciding on an outcome myself. You know, when I won't say it in case somebody hasn't seen this series, but it's Steve Thorpe's favourite series of all time. And the last episode, you don't really know what's happened, right? Somebody might have died, they might have not, right? That's all I'm going to say. You probably know what I'm talking about if you've seen it. And it's just left open. And it's like, well, that's for you to decide. And I don't want to decide. I want to know what happened. Don't leave it on me. You wrote this fucking thing. You tell me what happened, right? That's my ethos on the whole subject.
Yeah.
But when it's like this, when we know what Koskov's fate is, okay? He's obviously diplomatic bag. He's going to be sent back and tortured and killed probably. And it's like, okay, I don't need to be spoon. I know that's roughly his fate, and I can imagine what shape that might have taken. And I'm happy with that. You know what I mean? What's your take on that?
Yeah, no, I agree totally, and I think it's a fitting death, isn't it? Because he was talking all about defectors and everything like that, and the fact that he's used government funds illegally and everything like that. And I think that's a very fitting end for his character for sure. And then looking at Brad Whitaker, so now this is the villain who we see die. Obviously, he has an obsession, and we're all for villains with obsessions. And his is obviously war, his little military toys and reenactments, how he would do the war. And I like that side to him because it's kind of like there's a little bit of a childlike part to him, but also he is a bit of a nut job when it comes to that side of things, and he's proper into his high tech. So he runs that fine line between being a bit goofy / not scary enough, or he's got all this high tech stuff and he can be dangerous. And sometimes he falls on one part and sometimes he falls on the other part, and it's quite tricky. But in terms of his fight with Bond, are you a fan of that?
Okay, so before we get onto the fight, I have a comment to make about Whitaker. And if I'm honest, if I dig deep, I think he was miscast, Joe Don Baker. I don't think Whitaker, like you say, I don't know what to make of him. There's a bit of buffoonery going on there, but there's also the darker side of him as well. And I in a sense, like if you're going to have a character like that who's into the battles and recreating battles and all that, I could see General Orloff being into that. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely.
And I feel like I want that from Whitaker. I want that because you also have a bit of buffoonery from Koskov, don't you? With the thank you and all that shit. Like he doesn't feel like a real threat. He's devious and he's sneaky, but I feel like we needed a real dark threat in this, and I don't think we got it from Joe Don Baker's Whitaker. I think we needed somebody who was a proper Looney Tune that didn't have that lighter side. I think that's the foot wrong. I think you'd have an out and out a lunatic general who was all about recreating those things, was all about military history and all of that kind of stuff, and then they were all about cold precision tactics and nothing else, So that's my thoughts on that. In terms of their fight at the end, I do like it when it's firmly stacked against Bond's favour. He's got his little pop gun, as he calls it, and he's got that fucking thing with the shield on that's like and just mows everything down. Brilliant. I like it when Bond is really on his back foot and he's got to use his skills in order to do it, which of course he does. Nice little line. He met his Waterloo. Brilliant. Nice one,
great,
Timmy.
Yeah, great pair.
Felled by a falling statue. That's a nice poetic end for him, isn't it? I like that a lot. I like that. I like that ending. Yeah. If anything, I feel like we could have got that sequence could have gone a bit longer, I reckon. I feel it ends a little bit too soon, maybe. I don't know. What's your thinkings?
Yeah, very, very similar to what I think. I think the way that he goes is the right way for him to go. Obviously, it's surrounded by his toys. I like that little bit where he gets the little model soldier to light the cannon, and then the cannon goes off. I think that's great. And you're right, there's not really a sense of fear about him, but he does have all this high-tech stuff. Whereas if his character had been darker throughout,
Yeah.
that fear would have been present in this scene, and because of that, like you said, the buffoonery and the lightheartedness, it's kind of missing, which is a bit of a shame. Because it's more fascinating rather than fearful in terms of when he gets all these guns out of his drawers and all these different things. So there is that aspect, but Bond using his, the wolf whistle key finder thing, and the bust falling on top of him. I think that's a great way to go, and him falling back into the military. But I think his character needed to go, like you said, more of the dark side. So to speak.
I feel like we almost needed a scene where we see Whittaker brutally kill somebody with his in this same room, maybe, or in a similar way. I don't know whether you needed, like, maybe he's got an underling or something that's betrayed him, and he does the speech about battles that he gives to Bond to an underling, but then he brings out his giant weapon and takes him down like that. So there's a bit
brings out his giant weapon, Tom.
Steady on, Chris. Steady on.
Right.
He brings out his big old weapon and
slaps
dispatches
on the table.
slaps him around the face with it, and there's a bit of foreshadowing there. But I do. My big takeaway from it is, as much as I like the scene and the way he's sent off, I think Whittaker was watered down by having that sort of jovial buffoonery. I almost think he's a bit thick sometimes. Do you know what I mean? He's just a bit of a dumbass.
He's definitely not a battle for Bond when it comes to sort of intelligence.
Exactly. And for somebody to be a battlefield strategist, I don't think that goes hand in hand. I think it just waters that down. You needed somebody like a proper General of Looney Tune be Brad Whittaker, and just not have
someone a lot colder. I think
definitely
just needed to be more calculating.
Jodon's a very warm dude. Like, I want to go for a beer with Jodon,
even though he's a villain.
I want to hang out with him. Obviously we see more of that with Jack Wade, that sort of buffoonery style thing. But I think that's where it goes wrong, man. Is that death? Great, I'll take the death. But Whittaker as a character, and I don't think that was the right angle to play with Whittaker.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I totally agree with you on that. But if we're looking at just death, so are we looking at iconic, memorable, normal?
It's definitely not iconic.
No.
I think it's
in between memorable and normal. I think it's probably... I think to Bond fans it's probably memorable, but then... It's not like crazy memorable, is it?
No, it's not. I think it's like a good
norm.
Good, good. It's midway between good and all right.
Yeah, so it's between good and all right, and it's between memorable and normal.
Yeah. But so I don't know. I feel like almost that undersells it a bit, because I do like that scene.
No, I think it should be good. If we're forgetting the character, if we're thinking the actual death and the setting, I might bump it up to good, but keep it as normal as opposed to.
And the fact that he uses the little keychain thing, just a nice thing.
Yeah,
because that's introduced to us way before, like you were saying earlier. It's not like a last minute thing. Bond using his skills. So I think maybe we've undersold it a little bit there.
Let's go good but normal then.
Good but normal. Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
Right. Now, License to Kill, Tommy.
Yeah, mate.
France Sanchez. What are we talking about France?
This is what I hinted at earlier. I think this is the ultimate villain death for me. I think in terms of poetic justice, in terms of petard, and in terms of just being like, fuck yeah. It's got to be Sanchez's death, man. Let's take a look at the situation. Bond's best mate has been mangled by a shark, right? He's lost his leg below the knee and all the rest of it. He's lost a hand. Not in the film world.
Recent bride was murdered, raped and murdered.
Let's not forget that. In the book world, he has to live with a peg leg and a hook for the rest of his life, like, a pirate, right? Not a nice thing to do to somebody's best mate, right? Bond goes off on one, right? He's going to stop at nothing to get revenge. I like it. Brilliant. Yeah. When you see Bond genuinely fired up and angry, I get aroused by it. And I'm like, go on, Bond, go and teach him a bloody lesson, right? Which he does. And there is something beautiful about that moment where they've had that mad scramble in the trucks, over the top of the trucks, that fight. Great fucking scene. Then you have that moment where they crash. They're both absolutely battered, stumbling around all over the place. You've never seen Bond look that fucked up before, ever. Not in not even just a little bit. By a country mile, that dude is. You've never seen Bond like that before. There he is. He's lying down on the rock. He's fucked. Sanchez comes up. He's got the upper hand. He's got his machete, and it's just like, don't you want to know why? And that dude, there is something about that line even that gives me tingles. Just the way, there's that moment because you if you're in Sanchez's shoes, man, you're constantly in that world. You're constantly fighting off infiltrators and people that are going to try and betray you and sell you out, whether it's to other dealers, whether it's to the DEA or
loyalty
whoever
is
it is.
more important to him than money.
Exactly. It's all about that. And he doesn't know why Bond is. So I guess he's just assuming he's a competitor at this point, or, you know, or somebody sent by a competitor. And you get to that key moment where he's about to be macheted off the face. And he's like, don't you want to know why? And there's just that moment where he hesitates to be like, oh, yeah. I don't know why. What's going on here? And then it's the genuine Felix lighter in the hand. You see the inscription, love always, Della and Felix. And that is what does the business. Dude, if there was a better way to dispatch Sanchez, I can't think of one. And I don't think it exists because that is poetic justice right there and then. What do you think about it?
Completely 100%. But not only have you got that emotional... And this is the thrust of the whole story, really. But not only have you got that, but the other side of his petard is that he's covered in the cocaine gasoline, which is, you know, his whole drug side of things. And obviously that's what makes him flammable. And that lighter, we know, again, the foreshadowing, we know it puts out a bloody big flame because we saw it at the wedding scene. And and then the fact that he's still alive and he's suffering, he doesn't just die straight away. For the sort of torture that he's put so many people through, but particularly Felix, he deserves to die a horrible death. And the way that he's being burned, I mean, it doesn't get much horrible than being burned alive. I mean, there isn't probably anything that's as bad as that. And then obviously he then stumbles into like the spilled gasoline, which then takes up all of his cocaine gasoline, all the remaining 2 tanker trucks or whatever, just in this massive explosion, and Bond is still looking absolutely fucked. Like his clothes are shredded, his face is shredded. He's like, how did I get away with that? But the way that Sanchez went was absolutely perfect on so many levels. Absolutely
perfect. There is not one detail out of place there.
No.
And that's the sort of thing I wanted for Goldfinger, man. That sort of thing, you know, with painting the girl in gold or whatever, he needed some sort of gold-related comeuppance. And with Sanchez, his whole operation, his unique little mechanism of smuggling the drugs was his undoing. And in such a beautiful, poetic way where not only has Bond finally got his revenge, he's got his revenge with the wedding gift from the dude that he did it to, man. And so that is absolutely fucking brilliant. And I don't care who knows it.
I think we should add an extra tier now. So we've got great, good, all right, and shit. I think there should be fucking brilliant above great.
Yeah. This is
definitely in there. Would you say it's iconic? It's definitely memorable. Would you say it's iconic as well?
I don't know whether it's classed as iconic in the greater scheme of the world.
No, right? I'd say probably not. I'd say it's definitely memorable, but I'd say it's fucking brilliant.
Yeah, it is. It is brilliant. It is. I suppose at the end of the day, I don't know whether we've had any truly iconic deaths yet, though, have we?
I'd say
maybe we're rating it slightly wrong. I would say Odd Jobs is, but that's not part of today's game.
Not quite of it. We do get to some. I'd say Drax is pretty close. Well, no, it's not iconic as it is memorable. What would iconic? Yeah, I don't know. We'll get to some. I know there are some. I think this is right up there.
I think in terms of the meaning of it, the execution of it, and every layer of it, I think this is the perfect death for a Bond villain. It's particularly Sanchez. Obviously, it wouldn't work for a different villain, but for in the context of the story, absolutely brilliant. Great work.
Superb. There we go.
I tell you what, though, the disappointing part is Bond's gone through all that. Felix ain't that bothered when he gets home, is he?
That I don't want to talk about that. That really gets me.
All right, mate. Yeah, I'm in hospital. I'm doing all right. Yeah, what's going on?
Yeah. That's the only bit that annoys me. But yeah, let's not go there for now. But yeah, amazing Sanchez. Okay, so we're on to your man Pierce and GoldenEye.
Bing, bing, bing. Yeah, baby. Yes. I have such a renewed enthusiasm for GoldenEye, man, because
I thought it never left.
Well, it didn't. It did never left, but it's you know how sometimes things lay somewhat dormant within you after a period of time. When we went to see it last December, I think it was now, we had a little mini JBR meetup and at the Everyman Theatre in Baker Street, London. First time I'd seen GoldenEye on the big screen in since '95.
Wow.
And dude, I loved every second of it. That film is meant to be watched on the big screen, and I will take any opportunity I can to see it on the big screen in the future. I loved it, man. All the little beats, absolutely brilliant. Bond is meant to be seen on the big screen, obviously, but for me, that is such a special film, and I have a renewed energy for it since that screening. It was a beautiful thing. So, talking about villain deaths, then. So this one. Well, you've got the big aerial thing, haven't you? Whatever you'd call that.
Yeah.
Which is a very iconic location, isn't it? That's definitely one. Only recently fell down, didn't it?
Yeah, it's a shame.
Very iconic location. I would say that fight is brilliant. That's right up there with the best of them. Right up there with the best Bond fights in the entire series. Don't care what anybody says. I feel like it doesn't get rated up there in that. It doesn't happen in the same conversation as, say, a Red Grant fight. But dude, that fight is brutal and it's very desperate and very high energy. It's
frantic, isn't it? And you know they're two trained 00s at the top of the game, and that's what makes it like bloody brilliant.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah, and then so obviously you've got that fight, and then you've got that. He gives him the boot, somewhat like the other fella in Daylights, hanging off the bottom of the satellite.
Lots of headbutting going on before that.
Lots of headbutting, absolutely, and for England, James, no Alec, for me.
God, you deliver that so well.
Thanks, man. I've recited every line, even though I think I fucked up the line. I don't think he says no, Alec, does he? He says no for me. No. I think is what he says.
Yeah.
But 13-year-old Tommy, that's all I ever thought about, and all I ever did all day was just recite parts of this movie to myself. Down he goes, boom, and then of course Bond jumps off on the helicopter. Then the whole thing falls down on top of him. It's quite poetic, isn't it, really? That's the mechanism by which he's doing his master plan. Bond drops him off, the dude he's double-crossed or whatever, and there it is. So what are your thoughts?
I have heard some people, again, debate that potentially the fall alone should have killed him. Because obviously, I like the bit where this sort of dialogue exchange and then he lets go of him. But some people have said, well, that fall is God knows how high. Yeah. Wouldn't that have killed him? And part of me thinks, well, it probably would have done, but there's always a slim chance that maybe he's just absolutely effed up and it hasn't killed him. But the whole thing of the satellite then falling on top of him makes it worthwhile, I think.
Well, here's my take on that, and I remember having a conversation with somebody at school about this because they were like, he would still be dead from falling off there, and I'm like, yeah, right.
I love how every conversation at school started with,
It did though, didn't it? Is that right? I think he was dead anyway, right? He fell down. There's no way he's getting up and walking away from that. At the moment, we've got massive internal bleeding. Every bone in his body is broken. It's just, he's just a minute away from being dead anyway. He's just basically bleeding out on the floor. That's my take of it. And he's like, and he's just, mangled. And then obviously the thing falls down on top of him. Maybe he realistically wouldn't be able to do quite as loud a scream as he does, but cinematically, it's nice. It's a good scream. So that's my take on it anyway. So yeah, absolutely. I don't know the mechanics of high falls, so maybe I'm completely wrong, but I feel like there was just that brief window of time after impact where he's on his way out anyway, but it's a nice little, kick in the face to have the thing land on top of him.
Well, I think that's fine. I think it's definitely not inflatable Kananga, is it?
No. What a shame.
Yeah. No, I think it's fine. I think it works, and I think the addition of the satellite, like you said, that is his petard in the way he's been using it. That's what he's sort of using for GoldenEye, and that falling on top of him, killing it, like finishing him off is good enough to keep it like that. And their battle, like you said, is absolutely brilliant. Great vicious, brutal, nice bit of dialogue, nice line, nice payoff. So yeah, no, I think it works in terms of other potential ways. I don't know if you need it because you got that vicious fight, showing their skills, and then obviously it's really precarious. Like if the way that ladder just drops and like Bond and he just holds on, and you're like, whoa, and then they fall below the ladder to that little bit underneath it, and obviously it's hundreds of feet in the air. And any false move and they're goners really. So you're kind of always on edge during that fight, which I really like. And the fact that he catches him as well, because he could have just let him go, but he wanted to, give him a little message, didn't he? He wanted to sort of, he didn't want to just let him drop. He wanted to catch him and just let him know that he had the upper hand. And I like that. So would you class it as iconic, memorable, or normal? I'd say it's definitely not more normal. No,
definitely not. I think the location is iconic.
Yeah.
Whether the death itself is, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's definitely up there though, man. I'd say it's a great one.
It's a fine line between the two. It's memorable, and like you said, that location is definitely iconic. Would you class it as fucking brilliant, great, good, all right, or shit?
I would say great.
Yeah, I think so.
Like if Sanchez's death is the yardstick for fucking brilliant. Right, it's not quite there.
No,
because the poetry of it is not up there, but it is still great.
I'd say great and memorable in an iconic location.
Yeah,
there you go.
Nice little wrapper. Yeah, that's good.
Right. Sounds good.
Very nice.
Who have we got next then, Tom?
Well, somebody you've already mentioned, obviously, which is good old. Oh God, what's his name? My brain has just stopped working. Elliot Carver. There he is, Mr. Tomorrow's News Today. Yeah. Sea drill right up his back door. Beautiful.
Was it up his back door? That would have been better. That would have been way better.
I like to think it was, Yeah. Yes. So there we have it. Right. We've got the petard, because that was the mechanism from early on in the film from causing all the trouble. He's got his sea drill. He's on his stealth boat, and there it is. The drill is the thing that gets him. I would say. The thing that makes me wince a little bit is the dialogue around the death, though.
Yeah, give the people what they want.
You forget the
first rule of mass media, Elliot.
Yeah, it's a bit too action movie quippy, isn't it? Rather than anything else. But I suppose we don't have or do we? We don't have like a huge emotional link with Elliot Carver, do we? In the sense that we had with Sanchez for what he did, and obviously with Alec for their personal history.
I suppose.
But there is the Paris Carver element.
Yeah, he killed Paris. Well, obviously he didn't kill. Kaufman killed Paris Carver, but under his orders. So there is that. But it almost seems quite long ago in the movie that perhaps it's not as strong emotionally, and like. Because the whole thing about Paris, perhaps that should have been mentioned again. Because I don't think it was at the very end.
No, I don't think it was either. The one thing I've learned in recent times, though, or I say learned, I read, whether it's true or not, I'm not 100% sure at this point. But apparently, the line in "World Is Not Enough," where Electra says to Bond, "Have you ever lost anybody?" and he goes silent. I always assumed that was a Tracy reference, but apparently, from what I read, that's supposed to be a reference to Paris Carver.
Okay.
That's
interesting because I always had the Tracy thing. But maybe, And I think that would have worked had more been played up on that towards the end of the film, because he says, "Oh, you've got something, got something of mine in your hotel room along with my wife," or whatever it is. Yeah. And then after that Kaufman scene, I don't know if Paris is mentioned again. Whereas, this is someone that Bond's been in love with potentially and had like a bit of a relationship with, and she's married to Elliot Carver. So
do you know what? Get rid of all the shoddy dialogue there. All he needed to say were 2 words: for Paris. Throw him into the drill.
Yeah, a bit similar to for me, but no, but
yes,
but you are on the right track. And I think to give that added emotional bit, which is what we want, because we want Bond. We want the deaths to have meaning, like to Bond, not just to kill and it's job done. And the opportunity is there, or the recipe is there. We've seen the scenes with Paris. We know that they've been, had that past, and did you get too close for comfort? He got too close for comfort and all of that. So there wasn't an emotional attachment there. And I think they should have played that up more. And then, because, the CVAC drill, it is a petard and it's an interesting death and it's a good way to go. But rather than give the people what they want, if it's the thing about Paris, then it's that little bit of revenge. Yeah. Then you want to really see that CVAC drill, like churn him, like really do the damage. Yeah. And at the moment, it's almost like it's in passing a little bit. So I think they missed a trick. I think if they had that Paris emotional element there, that would have ramped up his death to another level, I think. Yeah,
I think there's definitely something in that, because they have that emotional scene. They definitely have history that we don't really learn too much about, but there's definitely history there, and there is a vulnerability from Pierce there. Yes. In that moment. And then, of course, her death, I think that's a great moment as well, when he finds her in the hotel room, and there genuinely feels like there's sadness coming from Bond there just before the Kaufman bit. So, and like you say, it's never really brought up again, is it? So it's kind of like, it is a shame that emotional impact moment, I feel, does go to waste in the climax. I think if that was referenced during Carver's death, we would have that would have been more of a That's
Do you know what, though? I think maybe the reason they potentially didn't do it was because they wanted Bond and Wei Lin's relationship to feel like, oh, they're going to get together. But I think it would have been, because there's no chemistry between those two. No. I think they could have happily finished the film without them getting together. Yeah. I know this sounds weird because it's a bit what Bond does, but I don't think they should have got together, Wei Lin and Bond. No. I think they should have just been respectful in terms of they'd each accomplished their own missions while working together, but have that emotional element of Paris. And that would have worked a lot better, I think.
Definitely. I think that would have been more powerful. If there's, with the one Bond girl, he doesn't get, don't not get off with Camille, man. What a missed opportunity that was. Get off with Camille, right? Wei Lin, no chemistry whatsoever between Pierce and Michelle there. There's just nothing there. I never feel an ounce of that pull between the two of them.
They're just good friends, aren't they?
Yeah,
and respect. There's a lot of respect there, but you didn't need to go to the. That,
but I know what they were trying to do. They were trying to do that classic Bond ending where he's on a dinghy or whatever in the middle of the ocean. They're sailing around looking for him, which I do love, man. I do like that, but I just never felt an ounce of chemistry between the two of them.
So in terms of Carver's death then, are we talking iconic, memorable or normal?
I think it's just all right.
So we got two. We got
the
iconic,
scales,
memorable or normal, and then we've got the fucking brilliant, great, good or shit, or all right or shit. So let's start with the first one. I don't think it's iconic. No. Is it memorable or normal?
I think it's normal.
Okay, yeah, I'd go with that. Maybe towards memorable, but not quite enough.
Yeah, upper end of
normal.
Yeah.
So if we're looking at fucking brilliant, great, good, all right, or shit, what are we looking at there?
I'd say it's just all right.
You know what? I agree with you, but I think if they put in that emotional element, it might ramp up to being good. Yeah. If they really played on that a bit more, and you saw Bond really wanting revenge and stuff, rather than just killing him. I think it would have then flipped it to good, but I think it's all right and it's normal, but towards a higher end normal. Yeah, I love our little tier system that we got going. Yeah, okay, now this is an interesting one. Obviously, the world is not enough.
Yep.
Now, some people say it's Renard, some people say it's Electric King. In my eyes, 100% it's Electric King is the main villain. For me, Renard, obviously, he's there at the end, but I'm putting Renard firmly in the henchman camp. I'm not even putting him as co-main villain. No. I'm putting him in the henchman camp. We'll leave him for another episode. Yeah. Let's stick strictly with Electric King.
Oh, mate.
What a death. What a character. What a death.
Dude, this for me is up there with Locke being kicked off the top. Right, but in some ways it's more gut wrenching because it's so difficult, right? Because we all have that ploughed into us from day one as men that you're not allowed to harm the ladies because they're you just don't do it. It's not allowed, right? And then there is an element to it. So there's that element where it's like, oh fuck, that's a punch in the gut, right? But then also, the fact that she is so fucking stunningly beautiful, man. I'm like, oh, what a waste. You know what I mean? There's that element as well. And to be point blank in the face.
And she seduced him for like most of the film, and like completely had him wrapped around her finger for pretty much the whole film as well.
Yeah, what a moment! What a death! And do you know what, man? As a Bond who never got any Fleming material to play with, that could have been a Fleming moment, couldn't it? You could imagine that in one of the books. You know, Definitely. That could have been the climax of one of the original Fleming stories. You know, Bond having to pull the trigger on a beautiful woman, point blank range. She's unarmed. You know what I mean? It's like, what a way to go, man! And what a gut punch that is. But obviously, he had to do it. Right, and obviously you kind of hate her a little bit because she's so manipulative, and she's like, "You couldn't kill me," and all that stuff.
You'd miss
me, yeah, and all that. So she has to go, but fuck, man, that is a moment, isn't it? How do you feel about that? Do you know what, man? I love GoldenEye, but I think that might be. I'm not going to call it Pierce's finest hour, but it might be
Pierce's finest couple of minutes.
maybe his finest. I don't know. It's because that is so for a Bond who's usually so flippant. It's kind of has the similar impact to Locke, doesn't it? With Roger, with a Bond who's usually so carefree and smirky and quippy, to have a moment like that's pure darkness. You know, that could be a moment in a Daniel or a Timmy film, couldn't it? You know what I mean? It really could. Yeah. And yeah, it's that is such a glimpse of the Bond we could have had with Pierce. As much as I love him, we all say the same thing, don't we? That those last three movies could have done with a bit of tweaking, or maybe not even the last three, definitely the last one, but we could have done with some more quality material for him to work with. That's the kind of the what I would suggest most people would say about Pierce's run.
And for me, like once Electra King is taken from the film, it does drop a level because of her character not being in it, which is a bit of a shame, because I think up until that point it's a really solid film, and she is what carries a lot of it, because she's such a good character. And obviously Bond falls for her. He completely and utterly falls for her. Why wouldn't you? Because the type of character she is and the way she looks and everything. But we've had that moment where he knows that she's in league with Renard, and realised that she's the one that's kind of, it's kind of reverse Stockholm syndrome. She's the one that's kind of been getting Renard to do what she wants. So we've had all of that, and Bond's chasing her. He does that brilliant moment where he hears M screaming. He goes in and like shoots a lock so M can get out. And now this is another moment that I think is brilliant. Is that then leads on to something else where she's on the walkie-talkie thing about to tell Renard to dive and take the submarine down. And there's that moment where Bond's like telling her, "Don't call it," tell him not to dive, sort of thing. And that look that she gives him was like, "You wouldn't shoot me, you wouldn't kill me, you'd miss me." And she thinks, I don't think she's ever failed at having men do exactly what she wants.
Fair play to her, because I would do exactly what she wants anytime. Whatever it is, I will do it. Yeah, totally.
And she's got Bond up until that point doing what she wants, and then there's just that moment, and it's just that, cold-hearted. He shoots her, like you said, she's defenseless, point blank range. I never miss. What a moment. And not only that, but you have M seeing Bond, and then Bond going up to Electra's corpse, and I don't know, I think he kisses her or sort of gets close to her face and touch her hair or something. And it's that moment, it's so powerful. I think it is absolutely brilliant. And Pierce, this is one of the best Pierce moments, definitely.
It's especially with M's link to her as well. There's that extra level to it.
That is exactly. Yeah, good point. Yes,
I'm going with fucking brilliant for that.
I agree. Yeah, definitely fucking brilliant. Would you say iconic, memorable? It's definitely better than normal. What do you think?
I don't know.
I think the way it's dispatched is normal, but the magnitude of everything around it.
It's a normal thing being done to a character that doesn't normally happen to.
Yes.
Your normal male villains, they get shot in the face every day of the week. But with this is a different ballgame. Yes, it is just a bullet to the head, but this is point blank while she's defenseless, and the whole package that comes with, that takes it to a different level.
I think it's memorable and fucking brilliant. I'd say I put it in those categories.
Yeah, big time. Yeah. And I feel like that is straight out of a Fleming page, man.
Like really you said, that could easily be in a Fleming novel. Easily. Yeah. Oh, it's good. It's a shame we didn't have a bit more of that sort of stuff to play with. But great character and great death as well. Kudos. So do you feel the same as me? Like, I'm a huge fan of that character. When she goes, like the last little bit after that, I'm a bit underwhelmed with. Like, Renard is okay, but I think he's a bit underused and everything.
Definitely underused. Yeah. And he had a bit of petard hoisting, didn't he? Yeah. With that cylinder thing in the belly, fight on a submarine. I do. I appreciate, because sometimes you need a villain fight in a Bond film in a really mad location, don't you? Whether it's on top of a cable car or on a space station or something, you need to have it in a really mental location, in a submarine that's like, I don't know what you would call that, nosedived into the whatever. Yeah. That's a mad location that you've not really seen before. You'd have had a fight on a submarine, but not one that's tipped up. That changes the dynamic of the whole thing. So I like that. But yeah, I and the stakes are still high because he's still about to blow everything up. But yeah, I know what you're saying. I think Renard needed a little something different in order to keep that impact in there, really. But I don't know. I can't solve it. I don't know how you do it.
We'll save that for the henchman death episode.
I guess,
But yeah, overall, Electra King, amazing. Yeah. So we're going from a fucking brilliant death in The World Is Not Enough.
Yeah, we are, aren't we?
To Gustav Graves / Colonel Moon.
I like that suit he's got on, man, with the visor and all the lightning.
That's
brilliant.
Probably the best bit.
I tell you what, man, if anything is straight out of Fleming, it's that,
I think that was it in Casino or was it in Moonraker? I can't remember now.
In one of them, maybe Diamonds Are Forever. Big thunder and lightning suit. Brilliant.
But we can say he's hoisted by his own petard.
I suppose he is, isn't he? Yeah.
I can't say that petard's any good.
No. Oh, God.
Okay, so Gustav Graves, obviously, they've got the fight on the plane, which is pretty terrible. And I'm not just saying this; it's not great. And the I mean, I think the Miranda Frost Jinx fight's pretty decent, but they intercut way too quickly between the two. You only see 2 shots of one, and then they cut to the other, and they should have just left more time, or even just stuck with the female fight first, and then go on to Bond and Gustav Graves fight and just do it like that. But anyway, so they've got the fight. Obviously, the windows are shattered. The plane's going out of control. And we get that moment where, not my dreams, where he's got his suit on, hasn't he? The electricity suit. And basically, it gets to the moment where, isn't he electrifying Bond or something? But then Bond... How does I mean, this is bad now, I've forgotten, but how does he end up hanging on the edge of the door? Does Bond kick him, or does Bond use...
I don't even know. I've tried to block it all out. I think half of the plane falls apart or something, isn't it? And he slides down, falls out and gets sucked into the engine. Is that what happens?
No, not quite. So basically it gets to the point where Graves is hanging out of the door. He's hanging onto kind of like the door, the hole in the plane.
Bit. Yeah.
And Bond basically presses that button on Graves' suit, so he's electrifying himself. And then because of that, he lets go, and he's got his chute, hasn't he? And the chute gets sucked into the jet engine, and then that sucks him in, and then he dies.
Here's my rating: utter bollocks. Shit.
Oh, is that a new one? Utter bollocks.
We need another bottom rung.
Right. So below shit, we've got utter bollocks.
Not good. Terrible.
No, and not just that. It's another, being sucked into a jet engine. You've seen that before. I mean, look at The Incredibles, the cape and the sucking in. And I mean, that might have been after Die Another Day, probably. But it's something that's, again, I don't think it's original.
No.
And
it's comic booky stuff.
Yeah.
There's no poetry to it. There's no meaning. There's no impact.
I guess the only thing you could say is that it's in fitting with the rest of the film. So the rest of the film is a bit comic booky for well, not the start, but certainly for the last third, and it does fit in with that. And I I do think, I mean, in terms of an alternative death, like aside from, because obviously the plane's flown through the Icarus beam, that's why it's breaking up. So there's that version of the petard in terms of, that's affecting the plane. And then you've got his suit, and then he gets electrified and jumps off. And to be honest, I don't think there's a way that you can improve that, which is worth doing. I'm happy to leave that death as it is, because it is very fitting with the rest of the vibe of Die Another Day. Would you agree with that, or do you think you'd like to change it?
It's as I've said before, and I do know there's the odd JBR listener who does quite like this film, so I won't dwell on it too much, because we've already said what needed to be said. But it's polishing the proverbial turd, isn't it? At the end of the day, it's like, why even bother improving any of it? It just needs to go back to the drawing board, square one. You either make it a Lego Bond film, or you put Roger Moore in it, who would save the whole thing as it is, and it would be brilliant if Roger was in it. That's my cure. But as it is, it's just nonsense. So yeah.
I think there was a bit before, looking at some of the positives, where obviously his dad, the general's there, and then he shoots his dad, and then I mean, I guess that's a bit of character stuff going on, and then obviously Bond and he have a fight, but the dialogue is pretty terrible at this moment in time. Like, really, really clangers in there. So all in all, I think it's not a great death, because it has been seen before. It is way too comic booky, but it is in keeping with the film. And I don't think there's any reason to change it whatsoever, or to try and change it. And it is a bit of petard with his suit and stuff, but
he can have his petard.
He can have his petard.
Whatever. Yeah.
So there we go.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to the next one before I start getting depressed.
Right.
Now this one, Chris.
Yes.
This is interesting, isn't it? What do you think about Lucifer?
So you know what? When you thought of two death scenes. At the start you said, there's one which is iconic. My initial thought was you were thinking of Le Chiffre, and then I thought you were actually thinking of Electra King. Obviously, Fran Sanchez is undeniably amazing, but Le Chiffre's death is another one which has got so much going on around it that makes it brilliant. Because he's at the point of torturing a naked Bond, hitting his bollocks. With the what would you call it? Knobbly rope, yeah. And he's in total power, even though Bond is such a badass that he's would go through anything to not reveal the information that Le Chiffre wants. Le Chiffre still is in that position of power. Bond is strapped to the chair. Le Chiffre's got the weapon, the knobbled rope. He's got his guards outside who've got probably guns and knives and everything. So the total power lays with Le Chiffre, and it turns on its head like that
in an instant. Yeah. Do you know? I think what makes it even more sort of tender is obviously he's attacking the bollocks, right? Which for any man is just horrible, the thought of it. Just you cross your legs.
I thought you were talking of experience. You've been to some S&M place and asked for some.
Shh, don't tell about that.
Oh, sorry.
You've got everybody. Everybody's been kneed in the bollocks at some point in their life, haven't you? You know what I mean? Whether you're playing football at school or whatever, you've had a knee in the bollocks at some point, and it's just horrific, isn't it? It's just nasty, and I wouldn't wish that on anybody. But then he reaches that point, doesn't he, where Le Chiffre gets his knife out and he's gonna slice off the penis, isn't he?
That's not good.
And that to me is the one thing there's no coming back from, right? I've said this before, but as a man, you could lose a leg, you could lose an arm, and while you would mourn that, and there would be a grief period, you'd be like, fuck, I've got to learn how to go through life without a leg or without an arm or whatever. You would get over it eventually, wouldn't you? You'd learn how to deal with it.
Yeah.
If it was your penis, you might as well just put a bullet in my head, man. Do you feel like that, or is that just me? Because I don't know if I could handle it. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
if
it
that's
wouldn't be
gone,
pleasant, that's for sure.
what am I even here for? You know what I mean?
It would not be pleasant, no.
What am I doing on this planet if that doesn't exist anymore?
Yeah.
You know?
But you'd be a eunuch, wouldn't you, Tom? That's it.
I suppose I would.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. Do you feel that attachment though? Do you?
Well, I don't want to get
do you think you would? Do you think you would learn to live with that?
Well, I try not to think about it. In all honesty, I mean that it's. Yeah, that's not good, is it? I'm not a fan of this, Tom. I'm not a fan of this.
It's making you uncomfortable, isn't it? Which is what makes this scene so good. Yeah,
exactly.
So, anyway, right, we can turn that one over to the JBR family as well. What do you think? Is there any coming back from that?
Yeah.
Anyway, what I love about this, I don't need Bond to kill Lashif. I don't need him to do it, right? The fact that Mr. White comes in, and do you know? Remember that there's that shot where he comes in through the door. Lashif looks over, and he comes in where Mr. White's almost looking down the camera. He's got his gun up in front of his eyes, and his eyeballs on Lashif, and he's walking towards the camera. And he looks terrifying in that moment, man, because he's not like a physically imposing dude, is he? But
no.
That's the way he walks through that door and that look on his face.
Very professional as well.
Yeah, very professional, very cold, very precise. And then you obviously Lashif's like, you know, I'll get the money, and he's like, you know, it's more. What is it?
Loyalty is more important.
More important.
Is that right, or is that from License to Kill? More to our organisation.
Knowing who to trust is more important to our organisation than money. I think he says.
Yeah, there we go. Let's go with that.
Something like that. Anyway,
we've got too much License to Kill going on.
Yeah, and then boom, and then that close-up shot of just his head. Boom.
That is a genius shot.
In it, just man. So once again, it's not a special thing. It's a bullet in the head, right?
And it's not Bond killing him.
And it's not Bond killing him either. But the meaning of that, the greater meaning, especially for us Bond geeks, knowing the history of Casino Royale and where that leads, and then that one word, organisation, right? I've been waiting for that my entire fucking life. And then all of a sudden, I'm like chills down my spine. We're like, oh my God, they're doing it. It's. I know they're not allowed to do Spectre, but they're doing it. The organisation is there, and I'm very happy with that, because that death from that dude, even though we've not seen him, right, and he's not played a major role in the film at this point, the fact that he turns up, does Lashif, says that line about his organisation, and then he buggers off, is like, whoa. This is bigger than just some dude playing a game of cards and trying to win back his money. You know, there's more to this. There's a whole wider conspiracy at play here. And that is the exciting element to me about that. That's what gets me excited and sends the chills down the spine. What does it do for you?
Pretty much bang on, actually, yeah. And it's also the desperation that Lashif suddenly faces. Like, he's gone from being in complete control, like you said, about to chop off old Bond's peen, to then suddenly seeing Mr. White with a gun on him, and like you said, I'll get the money, being completely, he knows, you know, his time's up, basically. And that is just that switch that's happened in a matter of seconds is brilliant. And his character's obviously, he's one of the best in the series. I absolutely love Lashif. I think he's fantastic.
He's brilliant.
And Bond witnessing his death as well is a great one. But that whole Mr. White, organisation, you're just a mere pawn in everything, just adds to the whole setting, I think, like the whole surrounding within the story. So for me, I think it's brilliant. I absolutely love it. I think it's fantastic. It's and we still don't know what's going to happen to Bond, because wait a minute, Lashif's just been shot. Bond's not in a good place. He's naked with his balls bashed and like he's tied to the chair. What's Mr. White going to do to him? At that moment in time, we don't know. So obviously then we find out afterwards. So yeah.
Well, that's it in the book, doesn't it? He carves, I think it's the letter M into his hand, doesn't he? Yeah. And then in the recovery period, they graft some skin over it to disguise
it's spy, wasn't it? Is it mean spy?
I think it means spion. It was like the Russian letter for spy, but it looks like an M, I think. I might be remembering that wrong.
I think you're right. Yeah.
But so they obviously didn't do that in the film. But I guess it's a normal death, but the fact that it happens how it does brings a whole new meaning to what's happened in the story, and I think that's a beautiful thing.
Would you call it fucking brilliant or great or good?
Maybe it's somewhere between fucking brilliant and great. I don't know. Is it? How do you rate it?
I would say yes. I'd say it's not quite Sanchez level if we're setting that bar, but it is really, really good. So I think it's on the top end of good. Yeah. Okay. Verging on fucking brilliant. Yeah. Oh, it's so close. So maybe it is. I don't know. But and in terms of, I don't know if you class it as iconic, but memorable. I would say, particularly to Bond fans, it's memorable. To the average person, maybe not. But to Bond fans, it's definitely memorable, and it's so good. Like, I mean, it is great, isn't it? It is a great death. So yeah, right up there, I think that one.
Right, nice one. Do you know what I think? I think maybe with given a bit more time, I think Le Chiffre might be my greatest Bond villain of all time. Yeah,
I mean, you're not going to go wrong with Le Chiffre. I think he's so well written. Yeah, like the motivations, the obsessions, the effect that he has on Bond and Bond has on him. It's just so well rounded. I think he's fantastic character. Brilliant. Yeah,
Dominic Green.
From one fantastic character to,
well, you say that, right? But I would say as a villain, he's a bit sort of run of the mill, isn't he? He's not got anything special about him. He's messing about with bottled water or something in the desert. You know what I'm saying? So it's not that, but I do like the dispatch of him in the sense that is very cold-blooded of Bond, drops him out in the middle of the desert, gives him a can of oil, tells him to start walking. That there's some poetic Flemingness to that, and especially because it's a can of oil, so there is the Strawberry Fields angle there, so that's a nice little poetic moment. I do like that. And then, of course, you don't see his death. You hear about it later, 2 bullets in the back of the head. I forget who it was, but I saw on Twitter the other day, somebody post a picture of Hinks with his double-barreled pistol and be like, 2 bullets in the back of the head.
We mentioned that about 2-3 years ago on the podcast.
Did we now?
Yeah.
Oh, very nice. All right, cool. We can claim that then. All right, cool.
I think so.
All right, sweet. So the idea that was Hinks then pulling the trigger on that is a nice little thought. I like that. I appreciate that. It's that thing, because I tell you what it reminds me of. My mind is going to blank on which one it is, but in one of the, obviously in the Fleming short stories, where he goes to see Octopussy's dad, and there's that whole link.
Octopussy?
Probably. Fucking hell. Which one is it? I haven't read the short stories and Donkeys, but no, it's the whole linking in with the Oberhauser thing that they did with Spectre.
Major Dexter Smythe and
he talks about giving him the gun with the 1 round in it and leaving him to commit suicide and all that sort of stuff.
Octopussy,
there's that classic Fleming feel to that, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? I like that, allowing a man to commit suicide rather than come in and do the whole tripping bang. There it is. Drop him in the desert. Tell him to start walking.
Yeah, I wonder how long it'll be before you think to drink that or whatever it is. Yeah. No,
that's fucking cold, man.
Yeah,
I love it.
It really is, because you've just prior to that, obviously they're in the hotel. It's got set ablaze. Bond and Camille managed to get out, exploding the wall. And in the distance, they see Green just walking off, don't they? Because he's trying to just get away. Yeah. And then obviously we get that bit where Bond is in the car with him, and the scenery is amazing. Just driving him out to the middle of the desert, and I think it's brilliant for a character which a lot of people aren't overly bothered by. And I think he definitely has some redeeming qualities. I like the realism to him, I think, is something. He's got those sort of bug eyes, I think, is good. And he does kind of go a bit mental in the fight with the axe and stuff. So he is, I'd say, more realistic, and that I think that is potentially a plus if you're looking at that for that in a villain. But I think you're right. I think the way that Bond, he just drives him out, you're like, what's he going to do to him? Is he going to shoot him? What's he going to do? And he just gets that can of motor oil. I wonder how long you'll last before you drink that. and then drives off, and you get that long shot where he's driving off, and you just see the can of motor oil in the sand, and yeah, I think that's brilliant, and that whole thing with the 2 bullets. Yeah, I mean, I remember we talked about that like. Well, I can't remember when we said, but it was a fair while ago, and I assume, in fact, it was just after Spectre. As soon as we saw Spectre, I think we saw the gun. Even before Spectre came out, we saw the that image, because there was an image, wasn't there, of Hinks holding the gun even before the film came out, and I think that's where we sort of linked it. And I think that is a really nice sort of, almost without knowing it was going to happen. That's kind of absolutely. Like a nice little linking thread there. So in terms of the death, like not just not the character, but the death, obviously we don't see him die, but from what we know, what would you class? Would you class iconic, memorable, normal, fucking brilliant, great, good, all right, shit, utter bollocks?
It's a tricky one. I think it's good.
Yeah, I that's what I was thinking of. Good.
I think it's good.
And different, I would say. We haven't got a character for different, but I wouldn't class it as memorable because you don't see it. It's not iconic, but it's not normal either. So I think different. Let's go with different because we don't quite see it. Yeah, but I'd say it's definitely a good.
And I do like it. I do like it. It's a nice little send off for him, and it's very cold blooded, which is great. Yeah, and
it's kind of petard in terms of the oil thing. So and like you said, the Strawberry Fields thing. So yeah, no, I like it. I think it's definitely in the good category for me.
Nice. All right, sweet. All right, it's time for a bit of a Raoul Silver. Yes. What do you think about this one?
Okay, so we've got Raoul Silver and Bond. Well, first of all, it's Silver and M and Kincaid. They're in that little sort of church. Sort of away from the Skyfall house. I think Silver in the scene is so creepy. Like he proper freaks me out a bit, and you can just see the fear on M's face when like he sort of shoots at Kincaid, so Kincaid kind of goes off, and then he has that moment where he's so big as well. Like poor Judi Dench is like pretty like tiny compared to him, and he's got that moment where his face goes up against hers, and the size of his face compared to M's is like crazy different. And that moment where he puts their heads together and he says, puts her hand on the gun and says, you pull the trigger and we'll put us both out of our misery type thing, or whatever it is. And that is a special, powerful moment. And she is bricking it because she thinks, this is it, she has no idea where Bond is. And it's a super powerful moment. I love it. And then there's just that moment where he's about to sort of kill them both, and then suddenly gets that knife in the back, and his reaction is like, when he looks at Bond, and he kind of realizes that he thought he was going to be the last rat standing, and yet obviously Bond is. This bit I think is great. I think Bond saying the line "last rat standing" works really well, and the way that Silver kind of collapses and dies, and Bond saving M is brilliant. I've got no time whatsoever for the "in deep water" line. Get rid of that. Like absolutely get rid of that. Take that out of the script straight away. Absolute bollocks that is, because you've got such a powerful, emotive scene. There's no need whatsoever for that absolute bollocks dialogue line. Get rid of that. Yeah. But that aside, that whole scene is amazing, because obviously M's injured, hasn't she? She's been shot. She sort of knows she's going to die, and then Bond has M in his hands. But in terms of Silver's death, I think it's I think it's brilliant. The setting, the emotion, the fact that he's going to kill him and M, I think is incredible. The whole way of Bond getting him with the knife. I don't know if there's a sort of I guess the petard moment, if you call it, is M herself. Yeah. But like his obsession with M and getting to see him, and his distraction by being completely sort of involved in just thinking about her means that he isn't open to what Bond is doing or Bond approaching. So in a way, I guess that's part of it. But in terms of Bond using the knife to get him, are you happy with that? Do you think there could be any other way, or what do you think?
Well, Silver's thing is he's a computer hacker, isn't he? So you can't really hack Silver to death, can you? That's not really going to work.
Not well, maybe with a machete, but not with a computer.
Maybe, no. It's all right. It's See, I must be honest. I'm not a huge fan of the last rat standing thing.
Yeah.
That for me is
forced.
I mean, I don't know whether that's a cool thing to say. Like, I think that's going into the wider discussion of Skyfall. There's a few moments where Bond says something which is meant to be cool, but for me, it just doesn't quite land as cool. You know, resurrection being his hobby is like, I don't think that really means anything. I know what you're getting at because you died or whatever, but is that a hobby? It doesn't. I don't know whether it really rings true for me. And you know, I'd like Silver's speech.
What, with M at the end, or you mean? Oh,
sorry, his intro speech when he does the big walk and the big monologue. That's great.
Monologue,
that's a classic Bond villain thing. But I don't know if Last Rat Standing. I know, it ties back into that speech as well. But I'm just not sure if it's that cool a thing to say when you dispatch a baddie.
Do you think he should have said anything, or just watched him die, or come up with something else? Or?
I don't know. You've got to say something, I suppose.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I don't know. But it's I suppose it's like a reverse domino, isn't it? It's like it's Bond throwing the knife instead of harpooning or being saved. So it's an emotional moment, isn't it? Because obviously, I think the weight of the scene comes from him cradling M in his arms afterwards. And all that stuff. So I think it's kind of a normal death. Like, I think you're right in the sense of the involvement with M is the important part, and that thing where he's got the gun up to both their heads. That's dark, and that's cool. I like that, because obviously that's a villain who's just in a lot of pain, and it's not just about being villainous or greedy or whatever. There's a deeper, darker level to that. But then obviously knife in the back. It's kind of normal.
Well, we've seen it in For Your Eyes Only, didn't we? Kristatos had a knife in the back. Do you think anything more could have been made of, his old cyanide face with the thing? If he had a fight, could that have punched it and almost fall out, or not?
Maybe. So I think the risk with that stuff, I think the way they underplayed that was nice. Because think of the times we're in, you can't go full Jaws with him. Do you know what I mean? Because that would be like, what's going on here? This doesn't suit the vibe of the thing. I think just that little hint where, like, he takes the denture thing out, and just the way his cheek kind of drops, and he suddenly looks really creepy.
Yeah, God, that was. Look, you just nailed it there, Tom.
There it is. That's great. I love that, and I don't think you need to make too much of that.
No. What about a fist fight though? Do you think that would have worked or not? Because obviously,
maybe. Maybe. I think. Yeah, I could see them getting into like a wrestle fight.
He's quite a big guy, isn't he, Silver? I think he could handle himself. And obviously he's a former agent as well, so he's obviously got a skill set behind him. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of another way to dispatch him that's more poetic or anything like that. Maybe it could have been a fist fight, maybe it's a bullet in the head or whatever, I don't know. But the way he was dispatched, I think, is pretty standard and normal. I think the relationship with M is the key part that makes it more memorable.
Definitely.
That's my sort of...
What are your thoughts on the whole thing where he's been knifed and he sort of turns around, sees it's Bond, kind of, exhales a bit and is like, oh no, I've been beaten. It takes him a little while, then he stumbles and then he falls. It's a bit similar to Largo being harpooned. He stood up, he sort of turned around, he fell on the wheel and stuff. Are you okay with that? Do you think it should have been quicker or longer, or should have followed up with something else? Or
I'm kind of all right with that.
I'm not too bad with it. I've heard some people say something else should have happened there, but so overall, what we're thinking iconic, memorable, normal, different. I'd say in terms of the death itself, like you said, I think it's normal in terms of the dispatching with a knife in the back, seen it a gazillion times, but in terms of the weight of what's going on, I think that really adds a huge amount. So would you say it's fucking brilliant, great, good, all right, or shit?
I'm not sure.
I think I'm going to lie on the land of being good.
I think I'd agree with that.
I don't think great. I wouldn't, because great. No. The emotion is great, but so the rest of it isn't.
Yeah, let's compare it to Electra King's dispatch.
Yeah.
I think you put those two side by side, obviously different situations, but I don't get the gut punch I get from Electra King's death as I do with. Sorry, I don't get the gut punch with the Skyfall death that I do with Electra's death. That's what I'm trying to say.
But look at the strength of the dialogue in the Electra King scene.
Yeah.
You'd miss me. I never miss.
Yeah.
I mean, that's strong dialogue. And then you've got the last rat standing. I was in deep water.
So, yeah.
It's not quite the same level.
I'm more upset about M's death. And it's almost because obviously we're getting two characters dying here, which is a bit different, isn't it? It's a different thing. So yeah, I almost feel like the death of Silver is sort of like, let's get that out of the way, and now we can get to the important bit.
Okay,
I think that's how I sort of deal with that, I suppose.
Yeah.
Whereas the death of Electra is like fuck. That's a moment.
Yeah. Well, everything is about M in this scene, isn't it? It's all about M. I just think the way that he has the gun up to both of their heads is so, like, that is a brilliant moment, I think, because that's just great, his character's ultimate goal is to basically
just
kill
chaos
M.
and destruction.
Yeah, exactly. And that I absolutely love. And then I guess it's just a little bit by the numbers in terms of what Bond does, but still in terms of the scene, it's an emotive scene and it's really good. The last rat standing, I don't mind too much, but I'm not keen on the line afterwards. But I do know what you mean, though. I do know what you mean. But so overall, what would you say? Good, great, or all right?
Good.
Good.
To me, it's somewhere between good and all right for me personally.
Okay.
But we'll go with good.
Yeah. Okay. We'll go good and normal. Yeah. Okay. And then obviously we've got Spectre, but obviously we have a Blofeld who again survives, so no death. Any other honourable mentions for Spectre?
What I will say, he never should have been arrested. Blofeld doesn't get arrested. He's too clever. He would have disappeared. That's what should have happened. Arthur subbed down the Thames. He lives to fight another day. That's my
definitely
die another day, I should say. That's my thing. Honourable mentions: Spectre. Let's see, deaths.
We've got Hinks, obviously
Spectre?
at the train, but he doesn't die. And then you've got Mr. White with obviously he's already pretty much dead.
That is, so he does it to himself. That is a very memorable moment, I would say. That's a very Fleming thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I like that.
Who else? Who else dies? Oh, the geezer in the helicopter, Sciarra.
Oh, yes. Oh, that's he gets kicked out, doesn't he? I think Mr. White's, in terms of the rest of the film, is probably the most honourable mention.
Yeah. And he's got the kite dancing in the hurricane line, which is
that's a nice scene. That's a really nice scene. That, and obviously, I really like that scene. So
I think the ones that deserve an extra special mention for me is any death that feels like it could have come out of the pages of Fleming. Like that's like a great thing for me. And I would say that moment there, sitting across over the chessboard, that's
very From Russia with Love.
Yeah, big time.
Like it. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll have to reconvene and come back. Hopefully at the end of September or October, and talk about the death of whoever dies at the end of No Time to Die.
That's it, and we'll have to do a Henchman's episode at some point as well, maybe. But I've really enjoyed this, actually. It's good to go through, because sometimes you kind of, it's nice to look at, the slight differences, like the main villains that weren't killed by Bond, the ones that just stand out in the memory so strongly, particularly obviously some of the early, not the most recent ones, but when you were a kid, what ones really stood out that you remember. It's always great to look at, and what ones were iconic, and particularly just what ones were ultimately badass deaths. And I think, like Sanchez, for us, I think we're both keen on that, as covering like the way he was dispatched. It covers the petard, it covers, the revenge mission. It's him covered in his gasoline, cocaine. It's brutal death, like burning alive. It's just moments before Bond looks at his worst. He's never been at that sort of level before, that much danger. So I think that for me has got to be right up there.
Big time,
And I think another one that's probably bang on, wouldn't change anything about it, is Drax. I think that's absolutely perfect for the way that Drax went. But
cool.
And a slight honourable mention as well to Zorin, because I absolutely love that.
Yeah, that's a great one.
He's brilliant. So
beautiful stuff. All right, cool. I enjoyed myself today. That was good.
Yeah, me too.
So, Chris, just to sort of tail off today's episode, do you know what it is time for right now?
I believe, Tom, that it is time for...
Who wrote the score for Live and Let Die? Who played Helga Brandt? How did she die? Who wants to stockpile the water in Bolivia? It's Tommy Trivia.
That's right, it's time for Tommy Trivia. Chris breaks out the 007 Trivial Pursuit deck, gives me some questions, and I see how I do. So what have you got for me this week?
Okay, we're going casting characters, films, vehicles, gadgets and weapons, locations, or crew and behind the scenes.
Locations.
Locations. Okay, first question is, what country is Q's field laboratory in?
I've got a couple of them. That could be...
I tell you what, if it's either of these two, then
Egypt.
you get a bonus point. Oh! What did you just say?
Egypt.
Yeah!
Nice.
Spy love me.
Yeah,
well
baby.
done. I don't know if you can see that, but yeah. Oh, that's incredible.
Nice.
Okay, on to crew and behind the scenes. Who directed the film?
I'm going to say Martin Campbell.
Well, I'm just going to give you a little hint. It might be someone that you're not overly keen on.
Oh, that's got to be Lee Tamahori then.
It is indeed Lee Tamahori.
Yeah.
Well
Nice.
done. 2 out of 2. Okay, casting characters. What recurring character does not make an appearance for the first time in the Bond series? Oh, now this could be a couple of different characters.
It could, couldn't it? My initial thought went to Q in Live and Let Die, not being in Live and Let Die, but it could be obviously Moneypenny in not showing up in Casino.
If I say it's not Q and it's not Moneypenny,
give me the question again.
What recurring character does not make an appearance for the first time in the Bond series, but it's not Q and it's not Moneypenny?
Oh, is it M?
It is indeed M, yeah. Do you know the film?
It would be, obviously, Moonraker was Bernard's last performance. Is it M? So it would be For Only.
Yes, excellent. Bonus point for that one. This
cool.
is some good
Detective
cerebral
like
Bond get coming on here. Yeah. Okay, we're on to the films. Who knocks out Bond when he goes to get champagne for Jill?
Odd Job.
It is indeed, or is it Random Task? In fact, did you hear that story about Random Task?
No,
the
I
guy, the actor who played Random Task. I read about it last week. He's apparently got sent to prison for, I don't know if it was stealing or bodily harm, and he killed someone in prison.
Holy shit!
Yeah, it was absolutely crazy.
That's like Superfly Jimmy Snuka from WWF. He was involved in like a weird murder thing, and then he died before he could be brought to justice. That was another weird one like that. Yeah, I can't remember exactly the details. I can't remember whether he was the one that did it, but he was involved in some skullduggerous stuff.
Oh, Superfly Jimmy Snuka, that brings back some memories.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah. Okay, we've only got 2 more to go. Absolutely stellar performance so far. We are on to vehicles.
Come on, Tommy.
When escaping from Carver's media complex, Bond uses the touchpad on his Ericsson mobile phone to do what?
Escaping the complex.
Do you want me to read it again?
Yes, do it again.
So when escaping from Carver's media complex, Bond uses the touchpad on his Ericsson mobile phone to do what?
Drive his car.
Yes. Can you tell me what type of car it is?
It's a BMW 750i.
Wow. Tom, you said you didn't know about cars.
I
750 IL, but I'll absolutely give you that because you get another bonus point. So you're now on like 10 out of 5.
Do you know, I don't know cars, but
if it's
that
Bond,
stuck in my mind all the way back from 97.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Right, so one more to complete the set.
Right.
This is gadgets and weapons. Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
What does Bond use to cut through the rope while dangling above the shark pool?
Say that again? Sorry?
Oh, sorry. Okay, so what does Bond use to cut through the rope?
His watch.
Yes, his rotating buzzsaw watch. Superb.
Nice.
There we go. Absolute
Beautiful.
top marks there. Fan-bloody-tastic.
Now, Chris, it's time for me to turn the tables on you because it is now time for a brand new theme tune from the genius that is Dan Gale. It is, of course, time for...
And here is your host of Bondbusters, Tom Sears.
There we have it. Brand new little JBR jingle there from Dan Gale. The Bondbusters theme tune there, beautifully done. For our overseas cousins who don't remember Blockbusters, it was a game show in the 80s that had a theme tune very similar to the JBR Bondbusters theme tune that you just heard. So great work, Dan. Very nicely done. Now, Bondbusters works as follows. If you're not aware of the new game of Bondbusters, we take the James Bond lexicon as recently written and released by the Alan J. Porter and Gillian Porter dynamic duo. And I'm going to choose Chris is going to choose some letters at random. I'm going to choose an item from the lexicon and see if Chris knows what it is. So what letter can I get for you this week, Chris?
Tom, could I please have a D?
A D. Okay. Scanning through the lexicon.
I can't remember what letters I've previously chosen.
Me either. It's been a little while, hasn't it? Okay, here we go. Ding, 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 ding.
What Doctor was present in the first film?
Okay, hold on a minute. I'm going to find a good one for you. I found one there that's... Oh, yeah, I know you're going to get straight away. So let me... Oh, maybe there's a... Oh, no, I'm not going to do that one. I'm going to do...
You're going to just stitching me up, aren't you?
I do like this, man. I do like this. Okay, hold on. Okay, so remember, Chris, just to highlight, and for the people at home as well, the way the lexicon is set up is that if it's a character's, in the letter D, if it's a character, the D would be referring to the last name. It goes last name, first name. So just so you know. So, for example, if you said, what B is a secret agent 007, you would say Bond.
Can I have that as one of my questions?
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
D.
What D, Chris, is the type of fatal nerve gas that Goldfinger intended to have sprayed over the Fort Knox area from the aircraft of Pussy Galore's flying circus?
Very good question, Tom. Very good question. I believe the answer to that is Delta 9.
Absolutely, 100%. Good stuff. Delta 9 it was indeed. Could I have your next letter, please, Chris?
Yes, indeed. Could I have an L, please, Tom?
An L, okay. Let's get an L. Some wicked illustrations in this lexicon, man. It's brilliant. Okay. Let's see. All right, I've got a couple of good ones. I'm going to go with Chris Wright. Which L is the nominal president for life of the South American country around Isthmus City?
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I'm having a brain fart. Hang on a minute. It's Hector Lopez.
It certainly is. President Hector Lopez. You are only president for life.
That is such a good line. I love Sanchez so much.
He's brilliant, isn't he?
Yeah.
All right, your final letter of the week then, please, Chris.
Okay, my final letter, please. Could I have a K, Tom? The letter K.
Okay, nice. Means I don't have to scroll too far from L. Beautiful. Okay. Let's see what we've got. We're going to go with...
I don't like when you laugh. It makes me nervous.
That's too easy. I'm not going to do that one. There's here. Okay. There's a lot of good ones I want to do, but they're all so obvious. I know you'd get them in a moment. Okay, hold on. well, that's a bit mean. Okay.
No, just give me a mean one, and if I don't get it, it doesn't matter. I'm happy with 2 out of 3.
Okay. What K is a nickname given to Ernst Stavro Blofeld in his guise as Dr. Shatterhand in the You Only Live Twice novel?
Fuck. Oh man, yeah. So I don't know. Let's have a what nickname?
So, to be fair, I didn't remember this at all. It's been years since I've read You Only Live Twice.
Is it an actual name or is it just something completely...
It's like a maybe a title you would give somebody.
Title, okay.
The something of something, basically.
Okay. The only title I can think of is a knight, but he's not really a knight, is he?
You're in the right ballpark now.
Am I? I don't know, Tommy. Sorry,
it's
man.
The King of Death, Chris.
See?
That was a very hard one. Yeah. I'm going to give you an easy one, right? I'm going to give you an easy one to make up for it. It's all right.
All right.
I'm going to let you have it.
King of Death.
What K, Chris, is an exiled Afghan prince who specialised in counterfeiting and supplying the international art market with items of dubious origins?
Could you read the question, please, Tom? Read the question again. Thank you.
What K is an exiled Afghan prince who specialised in counterfeiting and supplying the international art market with items of dubious origins? He used his wealth to live a lavish lifestyle that included owning the Monsoon Palace in India.
Sorry, I zoned out again. Could you repeat the question, please? No, I'm joking. Could it possibly be a certain Kamal Khan?
It can indeed. Beautiful
French
work.
Kamal Khan. Thanks, man. You've restored my faith and my pride.
No worries, dude. You accepted the difficult one with full knowledge that it was going to be difficult. So well done, you.
What do you think of as King of Death? Was that a chapter title in You Only Live Twice or not? And if not, do you think King of Death could be used as some sort of chapter title in a book? I think it's a bit too much for a film, isn't it?
Do you know what? I'm not 100. Like that's not something that's stuck in my mind. So that's like okay. That's one of those things. I need to go back and read You Only Live Twice. It's been a long time since I have. So I can't remember where that comes from exactly, but it just caught my eye there, and I thought that'll get him. Nicely done. All right, cool, good stuff. So that is about all for this week. Now, JBR is going to be taking a little bit of a summer's break, and we will be back in September, hopefully in the run-up to a new Bond film. I mean,
man, we've got to keep our fingers and toes crossed.
We do, don't we? If it's like, come on, I've had enough of all this now. Let's get it on there on the big screen, and let's do this. So we shall see. I don't know, but we can be quietly confident, I suppose. But I have heard a few rumours that apparently doctors and people in the NHS are being told to take their holidays now because there's potentially a further lockdown happening in September or something. Well, so it's
there's a few other variants out there, isn't there?
So they say. Yeah, so they say. But
it's Blofeld, though, isn't it? He's behind it all. That's why.
There it is. Yeah, old Shatterhand. He's over there causing trouble.
The old King of Death.
So yeah, we shall see. I guess we will come back. But I tell you what, though, everybody at home, we're coming back with a really good double barrel episode that we've already got planned. We're having a guest come on who I spoke to the other day on Zoom, who is probably the most enthusiastic person I've ever spoken to on this particular subject. So he's going to come on board. He's going to help us out with a double barrel episode.
That'd be a belter.
I'm predicting is going to be an absolute beauty. So we'll and we're going to have some on the spot location stuff happening as well with him. You and I, Chris, will be in the studio. Our brother from Langley, JW, is going to be out there in the field doing a little bit of something with this particular person, hopefully. So it should be a good one. Or a good two, I should say, because it's going to be a double biller. So we're going to be back in September, everybody. Hopefully you can get out there and enjoy the summer before, while we can, while we're all allowed, before our tyrannical governments lock us down again. But we will see what happens come September. All right, everybody. Until then, James Bond Radio will return. I've been Tom Sears.
I've been Chris Wright. Stay safe, everyone.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.
Hope you enjoyed the show. Good night.